How gravity influences the sleep cycle. For our entire existence, an unseen force has been a constant in the background of our biology, quietly shaping how our bodies function. It is so pervasive as to be unnoticeable. It is the force that provides the feeling of pressure when we lie down to rest, the anchor that holds us to our world. But what happens when that force is removed, as it is for astronauts in orbit? The answer begins to reveal what our bodies fundamentally require to rest. What is uncovered in the weightless environment of space is an important aspect of our own biology, an aspect that has been largely hidden by the constant presence of gravity itself. Welcome to the science for deep sleep. If this kind of calm exploration into the universe helps you unwind, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And wherever you are right now, whether near an ocean, a forest, a city, or somewhere quiet in between, feel free to share where you're watching or listening from. The normal world, gravity's embrace. On Earth, our biology is structured around cycles. The most fundamental is the 24-hour rotation of the planet, which provides the rhythm of day and night. Our bodies have evolved over millions of years to be tuned to this cycle. We refer to this as the circadian rhythm, an internal biological clock located in a small region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. This master clock governs many physiological processes. When we feel hungry, the rise and fall of our core body temperature, when we are alert, and, importantly, when we feel sleepy. The most powerful cue for this clock is light. As sunlight enters the eyes, it signals to the SCN that the day has started. The SCN then orchestrates hormonal and neurological signals, suppressing the sleep-inducing hormone melatonin and increasing hormones like cortisol to promote wakefulness. As darkness falls, this process reverses. The absence of light signals the brain to begin producing melatonin, our body temperature starts to drop, and the pressure to sleep begins to build. This is the familiar story of sleep. But there is another element in this process, one that functions so quietly in the background that it is almost always overlooked: gravity. From the moment of conception, every cell in the body develops under its constant influence. It is the reason our bones maintain their density and our muscles their strength. They exist in a perpetual state of resistance against its pull. This force shapes our posture, influences our blood pressure, and dictates how fluids are distributed throughout our bodies. When a person stands, gravity pulls blood toward the legs, and the cardiovascular system must work harder to pump it back to the heart and brain. When they lie down, that gravitational load is eased, allowing the body to enter a state of rest. Sleep, in some ways, is a surrender to gravity. It is a state where we allow the force we resist all day to hold us against a surface. Our brain activity changes as we cycle through the stages of sleep. We begin in light non-REM, or NREM, sleep. Then we descend into deeper NREM sleep, where brainwaves slow, breathing and heart rate become regular, and the body begins the work of physical repair, healing tissues, building bone and muscle, and strengthening the immune system. Finally, we enter the phase known as REM, or rapid eye movement sleep. This is the stage where the brain becomes highly active, similar to a waking state. It is where most vivid dreams occur. Here, the body enters a state of near-total muscle paralysis, a condition called atonia. This is a protective mechanism to prevent us from acting out our dreams. Some researchers hypothesize that this act of relinquishing muscle control is only possible because gravity is present to hold us securely in place. Even animals like horses and elephants, which can doze while standing, must lie down to enter true REM sleep, surrendering completely to the pull of the earth. On Earth, our sleep is an interplay between the light-dark cycle and the constant, grounding presence of gravity. For most people, this system works as intended. But to understand how deeply gravity is integrated into our rest, we have to observe what happens when it is taken away. We have to leave the familiar world behind and venture into the profoundly different environment of space. The New World, the problem in space. To go to bed in space is not to lie down, but to zip oneself into a sleeping bag tethered to a wall. There is no down, because you are in a state of constant freefall. This is the nightly reality for astronauts aboard the International Space Station, or ISS. For them, the simple act of going to sleep requires navigating a world without the fundamental rules they have always known. The initial problems of sleeping in space are logistical. Without gravity, an astronaut would simply drift, potentially bumping into sensitive equipment or other crew members. For this reason, they have small, private crew quarters where they can secure themselves. But even inside a sleeping bag, the sensation is alien. There is no pressure of a mattress on your back or a pillow under your head. Many astronauts report missing the simple, comforting sensation of their head resting on a pillow. Then, there is the environment itself. The ISS is a machine, and it is constantly humming with the sound of fans, pumps, and life support systems. The noise is a constant low-level hum that is difficult to escape. Earplugs and eye masks are standard equipment for the crew. The visual environment is also disruptive. Orbiting Earth at over 17,000 miles per hour, the ISS completes a full circle of the planet every 90 minutes. This means astronauts experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets in every 24-hour period. The abrupt flash of a sunrise through a window can easily jolt someone from sleep. The carefully calibrated 24-hour light-dark cycle that governs our biology is replaced by a rapid succession of light and dark. Even the air behaves differently. On Earth, warm air rises because of convection, a process reliant on gravity. When you exhale, the warm, carbon dioxide-rich air from your lungs rises and moves away from your face. In microgravity, convection does not occur. The CO2 you exhale can linger, forming a stagnant bubble around your head. To combat this, powerful fans are constantly running to keep the air circulating, which adds to the background noise. These are the immediate challenges. For decades, it was assumed that these environmental factors were the primary cause of astronauts' documented sleep problems. Since the early days of human spaceflight, astronauts have reported sleeping less and having poorer quality sleep. On average, studies have shown they get significantly less sleep in space, sometimes an hour less than their pre-flight baseline. Many resort to using sleep-promoting medication to get adequate rest. For a long time, the analysis ended there. Sleeping in space is difficult because space is a difficult place to live. But as scientists looked closer, with more sophisticated tools to measure physiological changes, they began to realize the environmental challenges were only part of the story. The noise and the light were masking a deeper problem. The real issue was not just the absence of comfort, it was the absence of gravity itself, and its removal was quietly disrupting the fundamental biology of sleep. The deeper science, unraveling the why. To understand what is happening, we have to look past the sleeping bags and eye masks and into the human body itself. In the internal world of the astronaut, the absence of gravity triggers a series of physiological changes that alter the body's ability to rest. The first is a phenomenon known as cephalic fluid shift. On Earth, gravity pulls a significant amount of fluid into the lower body. In space, that pull is gone. Almost immediately, those fluids migrate upward into the torso, neck, and head. This leads to a puffy face and sinus congestion. This constant congestion can make breathing difficult, similar to trying to sleep with a persistent head cold. But more importantly, the shift may increase pressure inside the skull, a condition known as intracranial pressure. On Earth, elevated intracranial pressure is a known disruptor of sleep. This fluid shift is a sustained physiological state that the body endures for the entire mission. Next is the disruption to the vestibular system. Located in the inner ear, this system provides our sense of balance and orientation. It tells you which way is up. In microgravity, this system loses its primary reference. The signals it sends to the brain become confused. This spatial disorientation is a primary cause of space adaptation syndrome, a motion sickness that affects many astronauts. But even after the initial nausea passes, the brain is left trying to make sense of sensory information that does not add up. It is difficult for the brain to fully relax and transition into deep sleep when it is being fed a constant stream of disorienting data from one of its core sensory systems. These physical changes are compounded by the chaotic light cues. While the official schedule on the ISS is set to a 24-hour cycle, the 16 sunrises a day create a conflict between the astronauts' internal clock and their external environment. Research has shown that when this misalignment occurs, sleep quality suffers. The master clock in the brain struggles to maintain its rhythm. This dysregulation affects the release of key hormones like melatonin and cortisol. Saliva samples from astronauts show that these hormonal rhythms often become flattened and less robust in microgravity. The clear peaks and troughs that define a healthy sleep-wake cycle on Earth begin to blur. Perhaps one of the most subtle disruptions occurs in the body's thermoregulation. To initiate deep sleep, your core body temperature needs to drop slightly as your body radiates heat away. Bed rest studies, where volunteers lie with their heads tilted down to simulate some effects of microgravity, have observed a breakdown in this process. The body seems to struggle to shed heat effectively, and the core temperature doesn't drop as it should. This is another barrier to entering the most restorative phases of sleep. This led to a curious finding when researchers started comparing objective data with subjective reports. In some studies looking at the effects of gravitational changes, participants' sleep was measured with devices that track movement. The data showed their sleep was significantly more fragmented. But when asked, the participants often reported feeling that they had slept well. There was a disconnect between what their bodies were actually experiencing and what their brains perceived. This suggested that for years, the sleep problem in space may have been misunderstood. Astronauts, who are highly motivated individuals, might also experience this disconnect. They might report feeling rested, but data can tell a different story, one of fragmented, inefficient, and less restorative sleep. More advanced monitoring has since shown that in space, astronauts can experience a reduction in both deep NREM sleep and REM sleep, the stages most critical for physical repair and cognitive consolidation. The force of gravity, it turns out, does more than keep our feet on the ground. It appears to provide a constant, stabilizing signal that our physiology relies on to properly rest. Removing it does not just make sleep awkward, it appears to break a fundamental component of it. The innovation, hacking sleep in a weightless world. When faced with a problem as fundamental as the breakdown of sleep in space, engineers and scientists must re-engineer the environment. They have to find ways to provide cues to the human body that help it rest in an alien environment. It starts with the sleeping quarters. On the ISS, each astronaut has a personal sleep station. These are small pods, just large enough for one person and a sleeping bag. The bag is tethered tightly to prevent floating, and the gentle, all-over pressure it provides offers a form of tactile feedback, a partial substitute for the feeling of lying on a mattress. This may help quiet the confused vestibular system by giving the body a consistent physical sensation. Astronauts can orient themselves in any direction. Without gravity, it makes no difference to the body. A more sophisticated solution addresses the problem of the 16 daily sunrises. The ISS was retrofitted with an advanced solid-state lighting system. These are not ordinary bulbs, but banks of LEDs that can be programmed to change their color and intensity. In the morning and during work hours, the lights emit a bright, blue-enriched light, which is a powerful stimulant for the brain's master clock. As the scheduled evening approaches, the system shifts automatically. The blue light fades, and the cabin is bathed in a warmer, dimmer light, mimicking the natural transition to dusk on Earth. This technological sunset is a direct attempt to re-establish the primary environmental cue our circadian rhythm depends on. Of course, lifestyle is also rigidly scheduled. Work, meals, and exercise are timed to reinforce a 24-hour rhythm. Exercise is one of the most important countermeasures. Astronauts are required to exercise for about 2 hours every day on specially designed equipment, including a treadmill with harnesses and a device called the ARED, or Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, which simulates weightlifting. This intense physical exertion helps fight muscle and bone loss, but it also helps regulate sleep. The physical fatigue helps build sleep pressure, making it easier to fall asleep. It also has positive effects on mood and stress levels. Finally, there is the toolkit of classic sleep hygiene. Astronauts use eye masks and earplugs. They are encouraged to establish a consistent pre-sleep routine. Despite all these efforts, the custom pods, the light therapy, and the strict schedules, sleep can still be elusive. The use of sleep-promoting medications is common among crew members, a last resort when the body does not cooperate. This fact alone is a reminder of how difficult the problem is. Even with modern technology, recreating the conditions for a good night's sleep that gravity provides on Earth remains a significant challenge. The revelation, gravity's shocking secret. So, where has this journey taken us? We started on Earth, with sleep as a familiar process governed by the sun. We traveled to space, where sleep becomes a complex logistical and environmental problem. We explored the science, uncovering how the absence of gravity triggers disruptions, from fluid shifts and confused inner ears to dysregulated hormones. We saw the incredible lengths to which scientists have gone to try and address this broken system. And now, we arrive at the core insight this journey uncovers. The evidence suggests that gravity is not a passive background force. It appears to be an active and essential ingredient for our biological function, particularly for our sleep. For our entire evolutionary history, it has been a constant, rhythmic pressure. Our bodies did not just evolve in gravity, they evolved with it. The constant, gentle work of resisting its pull during the day is part of what prepares us for rest at night. The way it pools blood in our legs, the way it gives us a clear sense of up and down, the way it aids in temperature regulation, these are not incidental details. They appear to be fundamental inputs into the complex equation of sleep. When we remove gravity, we are not just removing a force. We are removing a signal, perhaps one of the oldest our species has ever known. In its absence, the body seems to become disoriented. The sleep that astronauts experience, shorter, more fragmented, and lacking in the deepest restorative stages, is not just disturbed sleep, it is a form of biological confusion. The most profound part of this is what it tells us about our own experience on Earth. It reveals that the simple act of lying down is a powerful biological signal. It is a moment of surrender to this fundamental force, a signal to the body that the daily resistance to gravity is over, and the time for repair can begin. The feeling of weight pressing you into your mattress is a form of communication between the planet and your body. The truth that the study of astronauts reveals is that our dependence on gravity was invisible to us until we left it behind. We had to go to space to understand a fundamental truth about being on Earth. We had to build space stations and sophisticated monitoring systems just to begin to imperfectly replicate the service that gravity provides for us every night. It is the silent guardian, the invisible anchor, the forgotten partner in the nightly process of sleep. Its secret is that it was never just holding us down, it was holding us together. The return and future, bringing space down to Earth. The knowledge gained from studying sleep in the laboratory of space doesn't just stay in orbit. It returns to Earth with implications for medicine. This extreme research provides a unique lens through which we can understand more common problems. The most direct parallel is with patients on prolonged bed rest. Much like an astronaut, a bedridden patient is no longer fighting gravity's vertical pull in the same way. Their muscles and bones can weaken, and their systems can become dysregulated. NASA's bed rest studies provide invaluable data not just for astronaut health, but for understanding how to care for people recovering from surgery or chronic illness. The countermeasures developed for astronauts, specialized exercise, nutrition, and methods for managing fluid shifts, can inform strategies to improve quality of life and recovery for patients confined to a bed. Furthermore, studying circadian rhythm disruption in space helps us understand the challenges faced by millions of shift workers, nurses, pilots, and factory workers, whose sleep-wake cycles are in conflict with the natural day. The light therapy technologies developed for the ISS are already being used to help shift workers and to treat certain sleep disorders. By pushing the human body to its limit in space, we learn how to better support it when it is under stress here on Earth. But what about the future of space exploration? There are plans to return to the Moon for a sustained presence. And beyond that, a crewed mission to Mars. A trip to Mars is a journey on a different scale, taking 6 to 9 months each way. Astronauts would be confined for years, with higher exposure to cosmic radiation and profound isolation. On Mars, they would have to contend with a day that is about 37 minutes longer than Earth's. A persistent difference that could make it difficult to keep their circadian rhythms synchronized. Sleep will not be a luxury on these missions, it will be critical for survival. The cognitive impairment from chronic sleep deprivation is not acceptable when astronauts must perform complex tasks millions of miles from home. Solving the sleep puzzle is one of the key hurdles for sending humans to the Red Planet. Research continues to explore new countermeasures, from pharmacological solutions and personalized light schedules to even small centrifuges that could create artificial gravity within a spacecraft. The lessons we are learning are laying the groundwork for the next era of human exploration. Conclusion: we began with a simple idea that an invisible force, gravity, has been a silent partner in our sleep. Through the experiences of astronauts and the work of scientists, we have unmasked this relationship. We have learned that the absence of gravity does not just make sleeping feel different, it disrupts the deep biological rhythms our bodies have relied upon for eons. From the fluid in our heads to the clocks in our cells, every part of us is tuned to this constant terrestrial force. The story of sleep in space is a reminder of our connection to our home world. It teaches us that we do not just live on the Earth. Our biology is intricately woven with its fundamental forces. The astronauts, floating in their weightless sleep stations, are a mirror reflecting a deep truth about ourselves. To get a good night's rest, they must artificially recreate the world they left behind. So the next time you feel the welcome weight as you lie down in bed, it is worth appreciating. That feeling is the embrace of your planet, the anchor that holds your body and mind, the silent guardian ensuring that after a day of striving against it, you can finally surrender and find rest. Sleep like an astronaut, the NASA trick for perfect rest. You've been told to sleep on your back, maybe your side. You've bought the fancy pillows, the firm mattress, the blackout curtains. You do everything you're supposed to do. So why do you still wake up feeling like you've been hit by a truck? Why does your back ache, your neck feel stiff, and your energy flatline before you've even had your coffee? You might think the problem is just you. Maybe you're a bad sleeper. But what if I told you the problem isn't your body or your mattress? What if the real, hidden enemy that's been wrecking your rest is the very fact that you're sleeping on a flat surface? It sounds a little crazy, but for decades, NASA engineers and doctors have known about a secret to truly restorative rest. A secret they didn't discover by studying sleep, but by solving one of the most intense challenges the human body can face: the crushing G-force of a rocket launch. They figured out a position that mimics the body's natural state in weightlessness, a posture that realigns your spine, takes the pressure off your joints, and unlocks a kind of deep, uninterrupted sleep most of us only dream about. And in this video, I'm not just going to tell you about it. I'm going to show you, step by step, how to achieve this incredible position in your own bed, tonight, with nothing more than a few pillows. It's time to forget what you thought you knew about sleep. It's time to learn how to sleep like an astronaut. The hidden enemy in your bedroom, gravity. Before we get to the solution, we have to understand the problem. And the problem is simple: gravity. Now, obviously, gravity is our friend. It keeps us on the planet. But during the day, our muscles are in a constant, low-level fight against it to keep us upright. Our postural muscles are always firing, supporting our spine, and keeping us balanced. Then, we lie down to sleep. And we feel that sense of relief. But here's the key thing most of us miss. Just because you're horizontal, doesn't mean gravity clocks out. When you lie down on a perfectly flat surface, that relentless force starts working against you. Let's start with the fluids in your body. When you're standing or sitting, a good amount of blood and other fluids naturally pools in your legs. Studies have found that when we lie down, a significant overnight fluid shift occurs, moving from the legs toward the upper body and neck. This sudden redistribution does a few things. That extra fluid can increase tissue pressure in your neck, which can narrow your upper airway. Ever wake up with a puffy face or a stuffy nose, even when you're not sick? That's the fluid shift. For millions of people, this is a direct contributor to snoring and can worsen conditions like sleep apnea, where the airway gets blocked during sleep. But the trouble with lying flat doesn't stop there. Let's talk about your spine. Your spine isn't a straight rod, it has a natural S-curve. When you lie on a flat mattress, you force that curve to flatten. Your lower back, which curves inward, suddenly has no support. The muscles there, which are supposed to be resting, are instead strained. Over 8 hours, this creates pressure on your intervertebral discs. It's a huge reason why so many of us wake up with a stiff, aching lower back. And for anyone prone to acid reflux or GERD, lying flat is the worst. Gravity is no longer helping to keep stomach acid where it belongs. Instead, it's a level playing field, making it way easier for acid to travel up the esophagus, causing that burning sensation and coughing that wrecks your sleep. So, while you're trying to rest, the combination of a flat bed and gravity is causing fluids to shift and obstruct your breathing, forcing your spine out of alignment, and letting digestive acids run wild. Your body is trying to get comfortable, which is why you toss and turn, constantly shifting to relieve these pressure points. But on a flat surface, you're just trading one problem for another. What if we could stop fighting gravity and actually use it to our advantage? The astronaut's secret. The birth of the zero-gravity position. To find the solution, we need to leave the bedroom and go to space. In the early days of the space program, NASA had a huge challenge: keeping astronauts safe during the violent, high G-forces of a rocket launch. The stress on their bodies was immense. NASA's medical teams needed to find a body position that would distribute these extreme forces as evenly as possible. They studied how the body naturally holds itself in a weightless environment, like when floating in water or in space itself. What they found was that when the body is truly relaxed and free from gravity, it assumes a very specific posture. They called it the neutral body posture. In this posture, the head is slightly forward, the arms and legs have a soft bend, and crucially, the angle between the torso and the thighs is open, at roughly 120 degrees. This, they realized, was the body's position of least resistance, where muscles were most relaxed and joints were under the least amount of strain. This was a breakthrough. They engineered the seats in the space shuttle to cradle astronauts in this exact neutral body posture during launch and re-entry. By positioning them this way, the intense G-forces were spread across their entire body instead of being focused on their spine. This dramatically reduced the physical stress on the astronauts. This position became known as the zero-gravity position, Not because it creates zero gravity, but because it mimics the body's relaxed posture in a zero-gravity environment. For a long time, this was just a cool piece of aerospace engineering. But then, people started asking a powerful question. If this position can relieve the extreme stress of a rocket launch, what could it do for the chronic, low-level stress gravity puts on us every single night? The answer was revolutionary. They realized the same principles could protect the average person from the nightly battle with a flat mattress. The zero-gravity position wasn't just for space travel. It was the blueprint for the perfect sleep posture. The solution to our sleep problems on Earth had, ironically, come from the stars. The science of floating, how zero gravity transforms your sleep. So, what's actually happening in your body that makes this NASA-inspired position so good for sleep? Why does elevating your head and legs at this specific angle solve the problems we talked about? Let's break down the science. Benefit 1. Better spinal alignment and pain relief. Remember the unsupported gap under your lower back on a flat mattress? In the zero-gravity position, with your torso slightly elevated and your knees bent and raised, that gap disappears. The surface now cradles your spine's natural curve instead of fighting it. This puts your spine into a neutral alignment, which is the posture of least strain. The pressure on your lower back gets distributed evenly across your body. Many people who suffer from chronic back pain say they feel significant relief in this position because you're not just avoiding irritation. You're placing your spine in a therapeutic, restorative state for hours. Benefit 2. Boosted circulation and less swelling. Next, let's revisit the fluid issue. The zero-gravity position turns gravity into your ally. By placing your legs and feet slightly above your heart, you give your circulatory system a huge assist. The flow of blood back to the heart becomes much more efficient. Your heart doesn't have to work as hard, which reduces strain on your whole cardiovascular system. This improved circulation helps reduce swelling, or edema, in the legs, ankles, and feet, which is a common issue for people who are on their feet all day or during pregnancy. Benefit 3. Deeper, uninterrupted breathing. Remember how lying flat can narrow your airway, causing snoring? The zero-gravity position helps in two ways. First, the slight elevation of your torso helps keep the airway more open. Gravity now gently pulls the tongue and soft tissues forward, preventing them from collapsing into the back of your throat. This alone can dramatically reduce snoring for many people. Second, it takes pressure off your diaphragm, allowing your lungs to expand more fully with less effort. For people with allergies or sinus congestion, this elevated position can also help with drainage, allowing for clearer breaths all night long. Benefit 4. Improved digestion and relief from acid reflux. Anyone who's been woken up by the burn of heartburn knows that lying flat is a recipe for disaster. The zero-gravity position, with its gentle incline, brings gravity back to your side. By elevating your upper body, you make it much harder for stomach acid to flow up into your esophagus. This simple mechanical advantage can provide enormous relief for sufferers of GERD and nighttime indigestion, preventing those painful sleep interruptions. Benefit 5. A calmer nervous system and deeper sleep. Finally, all these physical benefits add up to a major neurological win. When your body is constantly fighting discomfort from back pain, poor circulation, or trouble breathing, it sends stress signals to your brain. This can keep you out of the deepest, most restorative stages of sleep. The zero-gravity position quiets the disruptive noise. Your body can finally send the all clear signal to your brain, allowing your nervous system to fully relax. This helps you fall asleep faster, toss and turn less, and spend more time in those crucial deep sleep stages where memory consolidation and cell repair happen. You aren't just sleeping more comfortably, you're sleeping more effectively. The how-to demonstration. Building your zero-gravity nest. Alright, this is the most important part. You might be thinking, this sounds great, but I don't have an expensive adjustable bed. The good news is, you don't need one. You can get remarkably close to the zero-gravity posture using a few pillows you already have at home. Here's exactly how to build your own zero-gravity nest. It might take a little trial and error, but the principles are simple. Step 1. The foundation: elevating your torso. First, your upper body. We're aiming for a gradual incline of around 30 to 45 degrees, not sitting straight up. The biggest mistake is using one or two soft pillows. They just bunch up and crane your neck forward. Instead, build a stable ramp. If you have a wedge pillow, perfect. If not, start with your firmest pillows at the bottom. Place two firm pillows, one on top of the other, starting from your mid-back and going up toward the headboard. Then, put a softer pillow on top for your head and neck. The key is to support your entire torso, from your lower back to your head. It should feel like you're leaning back in a comfy recliner. Step 2. The core component: elevating your legs. This is the step that really makes it the zero-gravity position. Simply propping up your head isn't enough. We have to elevate the legs to take pressure off the lower back and boost circulation. The goal is to get your knees bent with your feet slightly above your heart. Again, don't just use a single pillow under your ankles. That can actually strain your knees. Grab another 2 or 3 pillows. Lie back on your torso ramp and place the pillows under the area from the back of your knees down toward your ankles. You want to create a gentle bend in your knees and feel your lower legs fully supported. Your knees should be noticeably higher than your chest. This is what lets gravity help your circulation. Step 3. Fine-tuning for perfection. Now that you have the basic setup, it's time to fine-tune. Lie in the position for a minute and close your eyes. You're looking for a sensation of being cradled or held, where no single part of your body feels like it's taking all the pressure. Let's troubleshoot. Feel a small gap under your lower back? Slide a small, thin pillow or even a rolled-up towel in there. That tiny bit of extra support can be a game changer. Is your chin tilting down toward your chest? Your head pillow is too thick. Head tilting back? It's too thin. The angle between your torso and thighs should feel open and relaxed, roughly 120 degrees. It shouldn't feel like you're folded in half. Don't be afraid to experiment with different pillows. The goal isn't to perfectly match a diagram. It's to achieve the asterisk feeling of pressure relief. You'll know you've found it when you take a deep breath and your whole body just lets go. A quick word for side sleepers. While this position is best for your back, you can adapt it. Create the same torso incline and use a thick pillow between your knees to keep your hips aligned. It might feel a bit weird at first, but it can still provide more relief than sleeping flat. Conclusion. So there you have it. The secret to deeper sleep wasn't in some new age supplement. It was discovered by NASA and is rooted in our own anatomy. We've seen how lying flat can put your body into a nightly battle with gravity. And we've walked through the solution, the zero-gravity position, which turns gravity into your friend. By elevating your torso and raising your legs, you align your spine, boost your circulation, open your airways, and improve your digestion. It's a total system upgrade for your sleep. But knowing this is one thing, feeling it is everything. And that's why I want to issue you a challenge. The 1-week zero-gravity challenge, asterisk. For the next 7 nights, commit to building your own zero-gravity nest using the pillow trick we just covered. Give your body a full week to adapt. Pay attention to how you feel when you wake up. Notice if the aches and pains start to fade. Notice if you have more energy. Then, come back to this video and share your experience in the comments. Let me know your pillow setup and what difference you noticed. Your story could be the key that helps someone else finally get the rest they desperately need. If this video was helpful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more science-backed strategies to upgrade your health. Ultimately, sleep isn't a luxury, it's the foundation of your physical and mental health. For too long, we've accepted restless nights and morning pain as normal. They're not. You have the power to reclaim your right to a perfect night's rest. Stop fighting gravity. Start working with it. Build your nest, take the pressure off, and discover what it truly feels like to float off to sleep. Sleep like an astronaut, and wake up ready to take on your world. Why astronauts can't sleep and you can't either. The first night in space, you don't sleep. And it's not because of the silent, impossible ballet of the stars outside your window, or the thrill of knowing you're one of a tiny handful of humans to ever leave the planet. It's something deeper. Something's broken. You strap yourself into your sleeping bag, you close your eyes, but your brain just refuses to power down. It's screaming into a void, searching for a signal it has known and trusted every single second of your entire life. It's searching for down. And it can't find it. The anchor is gone. Now, you might not be floating in the sterile, humming environment of the International Space Station, but the very same system that haunts the sleep of astronauts might just be the ghost in the machine of your own sleepless nights. This is the story of how the invisible pull of our planet conducts the rhythm of our rest, and what happens to an astronaut or to you when that connection is severed. The invisible anchor of a good night's sleep. We tend to think of gravity as simple. It's why an apple falls, why we don't float off into the sky. It's a brute fact of our world. But to your brain, gravity is so much more than that. It's information. It's a continuous, unbroken signal that gives you a frame of reference for your entire existence. It's the silent, omnipresent whisper telling your body, your muscles, and your mind where you are in space. It's the architect of your balance, the compass for your movement, and, surprisingly, a gatekeeper for your sleep. So, how does this lump of electrified jelly and fat in our skull even perceive a fundamental force of the universe? The answer isn't in our eyes or our skin. It's hidden away, deep inside the labyrinth of our inner ear. Buried in the bone on either side of your head is a system of almost alien beauty and exquisite precision, the vestibular system. It's basically your own personal, biological gyroscope. Imagine a tiny, intricate sculpture made of fluid-filled loops and chambers. That's your vestibular system. It has two main parts. First, 3 semicircular canals, arranged like the X, Y, and Z axes on a graph. These are filled with a fluid. When you rotate your head, nodding yes, shaking no, or tilting to the side, the fluid sloshes around and bends tiny, hair-like structures. These hair cells are the real translators. When they bend, they send an electrical signal to your brain, telling it with incredible accuracy that you're turning, and in precisely which direction. But that only covers rotation. What about that all-important sense of down? For that, we need the second part of the system, 2 little chambers called the utricle and the saccule. These are the gravity sensors. Inside, there's a patch of those same hair cells, but they're covered in a gel topped with microscopic calcium carbonate crystals. They're called otoliths, which literally means ear stones. These tiny pebbles are the key. Since they have mass, gravity is always pulling them down. When you're standing upright, the otoliths press on a specific set of hair cells. Tilt your head, and gravity pulls them to the side, bending a different set. When you lie down to sleep, they shift again, signaling to your brain that your body is now horizontal. It's an astonishingly elegant system. These otoliths are the physical embodiment of gravity's pull inside your own body. They are the plumb line for your brain. Even with your eyes closed in a totally silent room, you know which way is down. You feel it. This feeling isn't some abstract thought. It's a raw, physical signal from these tiny, gravity-pulled stones in your ear. Your brain constantly compares the signals from your left and right sides in a delicate push-pull dance, which allows for even greater precision. This is the invisible anchor. It's the constant, steady hum of gravity translated into the language of your nervous system, a signal that says, "You are here. You are stable. This way is down." Without it, as astronauts discover, the map just disintegrates. the brain's internal GPS. Getting the signal is one thing, making sense of it is another. The electrical impulses from your inner ear don't just stay there. They go on an instantaneous journey deep into your brain, kicking off a cascade of processes that build your perception of reality. This isn't just about balance, it's about creating a stable world. The first stop is the brainstem, the most ancient part of our brain, which handles basic life support. Here, clusters of neurons called the vestibular nuclei act as a primary switchboard, immediately figuring out what needs to know about this, and routing the information. One of the most critical pathways leads straight to the cerebellum, at the back of your brain. The cerebellum is the master coordinator. If the vestibular system is the GPS sensor, the cerebellum is the traction control. It takes the orientation data and blends it with a fire hose of other info. Signals from your eyes, what you see, and signals from your muscles and joints, a sense known as proprioception, where your limbs are. By comparing what your inner ear is saying with what your eyes are seeing and what your body is doing, the cerebellum makes lightning-fast, unconscious adjustments. It's why you can walk down a bumpy street without falling over, or sip coffee while walking. It smooths out our movements and keeps our interaction with the world fluid. From the brainstem, another signal travels up to the thalamus. The thalamus is the brain's great relay station. It takes in sensory information, sight, sound, touch, and orientation, and directs it to the cerebral cortex, where conscious thought happens. The thalamus decides what's important enough for you to notice. The steady pull of gravity while you're sitting still? That gets filtered out. A sudden lurch or a dizzying spin? The thalamus flags that as urgent and rushes it to the cortex. Once it gets there, the information lands in the parietal lobe. This is where the magic of perception happens, where your brain constructs your internal model of the world. It integrates all the signals to create your conscious feeling of being a body in a space. It's the difference between your ear detecting a tilt and you feeling that you are tilting. This is what lets you feel stable on a moving train, even when the world is rushing past the window. Your brain trusts the vestibular signals saying you're still over the visual signals suggesting you're moving. But the signals also go down. Pathways from the brainstem connect directly to your spinal cord. This is the vestibulospinal reflex, and it's all about posture. If you start to trip and your head tilts forward, the vestibular system fires. A signal zips down your spinal cord, and commands are instantly sent to muscles in your legs and trunk to push you back upright, all before you've even consciously realized you were falling. So this sense of down is woven into your brain's operating system. It's a foundational layer. It informs your movement, your conscious awareness, and your automatic posture. This constant, reliable gravitational cue allows your brain to free up vast resources for other things, like thinking, feeling, and creating. It doesn't have to constantly worry about your basic orientation because the little stones in your ears are doing that work. This frees up your brain, and crucially, it allows your brain to feel safe and stable enough to completely let go and enter the vulnerable state of sleep. Cutting the cord, the astronaut's dilemma. For every human who ever lived, this system worked flawlessly, anchored by Earth's gravity. Then, in 1961, Yuri Gagarin was the first to experience something entirely new. That anchor being cut. He entered microgravity, and a human brain was deprived of its most fundamental signal. While his flight was too short to study the effects on sleep, the longer missions that followed on Mir and the International Space Station gave us a fascinating and troubling window into what happens next. When an astronaut arrives in orbit, their body starts a strange and disorienting transformation. Without gravity pulling fluids down, they shift upwards, causing the classic puffy face and bird legs. But the most profound change is inside their head. In microgravity, the otoliths, those tiny earstones, stop doing their job. They're no longer being pulled down because there is no down. They just float. The result is chaos. The brain, which has spent a lifetime trusting the vestibular system, is suddenly flooded with nonsense. It's like trying to navigate with a compass that's just spinning wildly. The brain doesn't know which way is up or down, or if it's moving or still. This sensory conflict triggers space adaptation syndrome or space sickness. For up to 72 hours, many astronauts are hit with a wave of nausea, vomiting, headaches, and a profound sense of disorientation. Their brain is desperately trying to make sense of the new rules. So, how does this mess with sleep? While the worst of the space sickness fades in a few days as the brain learns to rely more on vision, the underlying confusion doesn't seem to go away completely. And that confusion bleeds directly into sleep. For the brain to shut down for the night, it needs to feel fundamentally safe and stable. But the astronaut's brain never truly feels stable. That constant, low-level disorientation is like a background program that never closes, preventing the computer from entering sleep mode. On Earth, when you lie down, your otoliths send a clear signal. You are horizontal. You are safe. It's a physiological green light for sleep. In space, that signal is gone. An astronaut in their sleeping bag gets no such confirmation. Their brain is left guessing. This isn't just a feeling, we can measure it. Studies on astronauts consistently show a pattern of sleep disruption. They wake up more during the night and get significantly less deep, slow-wave sleep and REM sleep. Astronauts on the ISS report sleeping less and having poorer quality sleep. Their brains are simply too busy trying to solve the puzzle of, where am I, to properly rest. Bed rest studies, where people lie with their heads tilted down for weeks to simulate fluid shifts, show the same thing: sleep efficiency plummets. When the vestibular anchor is lifted, sleep is set adrift. A symphony of disruption. Losing gravity is the most unique sleep challenge for an astronaut, but it's far from the only one. Life in orbit is a multi-front assault on rest. Once you get past the romance of floating among the stars, sleeping in space is a battle. The biggest co-conspirator is the total chaos inflicted on the body's internal clock, our circadian rhythm. Here on Earth, our clock is synced by one powerful cue: the 24-hour cycle of light and dark. But the International Space Station orbits the Earth every 90 minutes. That means astronauts see a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes. 16 of them every single day. The primary cue that has governed our evolution is rendered meaningless. The brain's clock becomes completely untethered, and the release of the sleep hormone melatonin gets erratic. Then there's the noise. Space might be silent, but a space station is anything but. It's a machine, and for 24 hours a day, there's the incessant hum of life support systems, fans, pumps, filters. Astronauts compare it to trying to sleep next to a running vacuum cleaner. This constant drone keeps the brain's arousal systems on a low simmer, preventing it from getting into the deepest stages of sleep. And finally, there's the weirdness of just trying to sleep. You can't lie down. You have to zip yourself into a sleeping bag tethered to a wall. Some astronauts report a constant feeling of falling. Others find the lack of pressure on their back, the familiar feeling of a mattress supporting them, deeply unsettling. That pressure is another layer of information telling your brain you're supported. In space, that too is gone. Faced with this, space agencies have invested heavily in solutions. A tired astronaut is a risk. The most promising fix has been advanced solid-state lighting on the ISS. These aren't just light bulbs, they're programmable LEDs that change color and intensity. In the astronaut's morning, the lights are bright and blue enriched, suppressing melatonin to promote alertness. As evening approaches, they shift to a warm, red hue, filtering out the blue light to let the brain produce melatonin naturally. They're creating an artificial 24-hour day inside a machine that experiences 16 of them. It's an ingenious workaround, but it highlights just how deeply we need the simple terrestrial comforts of gravity, darkness, and quiet. If you're finding this look at the hidden connections between space, gravity, and our own biology fascinating, and you want to explore more science that shapes our lives in unexpected ways, this is a great time to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We explore topics like this every single time, bringing it back to Earth. Why you can't sleep either. The astronaut's experience is extreme, a magnificent example of a system pushed to its limit. It's easy to see it as a distant, fascinating problem. But here's the thing. While you're not floating in a tin can, the same systems being thrown into chaos up there are being subtly and chronically undermined right here on Earth. We may have, without realizing it, started to simulate the sensory deprivation of space in our own lives. The idea is this. Our bodies evolved for a life of dynamic movement in a world governed by clear, natural rhythms. Our vestibular system, our muscles, our eyes, our circadian clocks, they all require a rich and constant stream of information from the environment. Could it be that our modern lives are systematically starving them of this input? Think about your vestibular system. It's designed to process tilts, turns, and acceleration. It gets that data when we walk on uneven ground, climb, run, or just look around. Now, compare that to a typical modern day. We wake up, sit in a car. We get to an office and sit in a chair, staring at a screen for 8 hours, our heads mostly fixed in one position. Then we get back in the car, drive home, and sit on a sofa, staring at another screen. From the perspective of your vestibular system, this is an environment of profound poverty. It's not the zero-G chaos of space, but it is a dramatic reduction in the rich, 3D stimulation it was designed for. A system that's understimulated can become less responsive. The use it or lose it principle applies here, too. Now, layer on the visual conflict. For most of that day spent sitting, we're staring at screens. Our eyes tell our brain we're moving, scrolling through a feed, flying in a video game, watching a car chase. But our vestibular system says we are completely still. This creates a low-grade, chronic sensory mismatch. It's a milder version of the conflict that causes motion sickness, a subtle dissonance that contributes to underlying neurological stress. And then, there's the light. Just like the astronauts, we've taken a sledgehammer to our circadian rhythm. We spend our days indoors, under light that's a pale imitation of the sun. This robs our brain of the strong, wake up, signal it needs. Then, at night, we do the opposite of what our biology expects. Instead of winding down in darkness, we flood our homes with artificial light, staring into screens that blast our eyes with the very wavelength of blue light that tricks our brain into thinking it's still daytime. So when you lie down in bed, after a day of sitting still, staring at screens, and marinating in artificial light, what is your brain state? Your vestibular system is understimulated. Your brain is dealing with the residual noise of sensory mismatch. And your internal clock is profoundly confused. You close your eyes, but just like the astronaut, your brain refuses to fully let go. It hasn't received the clear signals it needs to feel stable and ready for sleep. The result is what so many of us feel. Trouble falling asleep, waking in the night, feeling tired after a full 8 hours. We aren't suffering from a lack of gravity, but maybe from a lack of interaction with gravity and the natural world it governs. Re-anchoring yourself to the planet. Understanding this connection is more than just fun science. It's a roadmap. If the problem is a disconnection from the physical world, the solution is to consciously reconnect. This isn't about buying expensive gadgets. It's about reintroducing the sensory inputs your brain is starving for. It's about re-anchoring yourself to the planet. First, intentionally feed your vestibular system. Think of it as waking up a sleepy sense. This can be as simple as gentle, mindful movements. When you take a break, don't just stand up. Gently tilt your head from side to side. Look up at the ceiling, then down at the floor. These simple actions send a rich stream of information to your brain. Practices like yoga or Tai Chi are powerful, as they're built around balance and orientation. Even just walking on grass instead of a flat sidewalk provides a more complex and stimulating input for your balance system. Next, break the spell of the sedentary state. The goal is to interrupt long periods of physical monotony. When you get up from your desk, don't just walk to the kitchen. Do a few gentle spinal twists. Try standing on one leg for 30 seconds, then the other. This forces your vestibular and proprioceptive systems to work together, actively retraining your brain's internal GPS. Finally, become a curator of your own light environment, just like NASA. The rule is simple. Seek light, then seek darkness. Make it a non-negotiable part of your routine to get 15 to 20 minutes of bright, natural light as early in your day as you can. Let that light hit your retinas. It's the most powerful signal you can send to your internal clock to say, the day has begun. Then, in the hours before bed, become ruthless about eliminating bright light, especially blue light. Dim the lights. Use night mode on your devices. Better yet, declare a screen-free period before bed. Read a real book. Let darkness send the equally powerful signal. The day is over. Prepare for rest. This isn't a life hack. This is biological maintenance. By reintroducing varied movement and natural light cycles, you're giving your brain the raw materials it's been missing. You are servicing your internal gyroscope and synchronizing your internal clock, giving your brain the signals it needs to finally feel secure enough for deep, restorative sleep. We began with an astronaut, floating in the silent abyss, haunted by the loss of a feeling we take for granted, the feeling of down. Their struggle is a stark and beautiful illustration of a profound truth. Sleep is not just about being tired. It is an active process, deeply linked to our physical relationship with our home planet. The gentle pull of gravity is far more than a force that keeps our feet on the ground. It's a biological signal, a planetary lullaby that has shaped our evolution. It's the invisible anchor that allows our minds to feel stable, secure, and safe enough to let go. The astronaut, deprived of this anchor, is a warning. In our pursuit of convenience, we've built a world of flat floors, static chairs, and perpetual artificial light. We've inadvertently created an environment that subtly mimics the very deprivation that plagues those who leave our planet. Our tossing and turning, our restless nights, these may not be symptoms of a medical condition, but of a disconnection. The path to better sleep, then, may not lie in a pill, but in remembering we are physical beings designed to interact with a physical world. It lies in feeling the earth beneath our feet, moving our bodies through space, and honoring the ancient rhythm of day and night. The astronaut's dream of a good night's sleep is a dream of returning to Earth. For us, the solution is much simpler. It is to fully inhabit the world we are already in, to re-anchor ourselves to the gentle, constant pull of home. So, here's a thought. What's one small way you can reconnect with your sense of down tomorrow? The invisible force wrecking your sleep. There is a paradox many of us feel in modern life. The experience of being deeply tired, yet unable to sleep. Your body feels heavy. It asks for rest. But your mind remains active, moving through lists, and conversations, and worries. You can close your eyes, but you cannot quiet the activity behind them. It can feel as though your body and your brain are simply out of sync. What if the reason for this is not just the stress of the day, or the coffee you had hours ago? What if the cause is not something you did, but a signal you failed to receive? This nightly struggle often comes from a mismatch, a conflict between an ancient biological system and the modern world it finds itself in. This system is meant to be our guide to rest. But in our world, it is often given confusing information. An old and powerful rhythm is being misled. The result is that a hormone designed to invite sleep is not released when it should be. Tonight, we will not be talking about simple sleep tips. This will be a quiet investigation. We will explore this invisible force, reveal how it works, and show how the modern world can disrupt it. And most importantly, how we can gently guide it back. The feeling of being tired but wired is not a personal failure. It is a biological signal. It tells you that your body's oldest rhythm is misaligned with the world around it. This is not about trying harder to sleep. It is about understanding the quiet, powerful machinery within you, and learning to work with it. What we will explore goes deeper than standard advice. We will journey from the control center of the brain, down to our cells, and even into outer space, to understand a force we all live with. By the end, you will not only understand this invisible force, but you will also know how to reclaim your nights. The ancient clock within. So, what is this invisible force? It is not a mystical concept. It is one of the most profound and well-studied systems in biology. It is your circadian rhythm. You have likely heard the term, perhaps in relation to travel or shift work. But the phrase is often used so casually that its true significance can be lost. It is more than just a body clock. Imagine, instead, a conductor in the center of your brain. This conductor does not just tell you when to feel sleepy. It coordinates a vast orchestra of biological functions, making sure every part of your body works in harmony over a precise 24-hour cycle. This conductor has a formal name, the suprachiasmatic nucleus or SCN. The SCN is a small cluster of around 20,000 neurons in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Its size is misleading. From this place, the SCN directs the rhythm of nearly every process in your body. Your immune system, your metabolism, your mood, and your muscles are all under its influence. It tells your body when to raise its temperature for energy, and when to lower it for sleep. It controls the release of important hormones. Cortisol, which helps you wake up, is scheduled to peak in the morning. Growth hormone is scheduled for release during deep sleep to repair the body. Even the mid-afternoon slump you might feel around 2 or 3 p.m. is not random. It is a programmed dip in this rhythm. It is a system of breathtaking precision, shaped over millions of years of life on a spinning planet. This is the crucial point to grasp. Your circadian rhythm is an ancient genetic blueprint. It is written into the clock genes present in almost every cell. For our ancestors, who lived by the rhythm of the sun, this system was flawless. The rising sun signaled the start of the day. The setting sun signaled the time for rest. The signals were clear, powerful, and consistent. The SCN, this conductor, needs to know the time in the outside world to keep the internal orchestra in sync. This process is called entrainment. And the SCN has one primary signal it trusts above all others. A signal that, for millions of years, was completely reliable: light. Specifically, the presence and absence of bright, natural light. When light enters your eyes, it does more than allow you to see. A special pathway of nerves carries information about the light's brightness directly to the SCN. This light signal is what sets your internal clock each day, telling it, this is morning. The 24-hour cycle begins now. This elegant system was designed for a world lit by the sun and the moon. A world of bright days and dark nights. But the world we live in now is not like that. We often live in a state of perpetual twilight, with dim indoor spaces during the day and brightly lit rooms at night. We have built a world that is often at odds with our own biology. And this conflict, this dissonance between our ancient internal clock and our modern world, is at the heart of the problem. The mismatch. How modern life confuses the ancient code. For our circadian rhythm to work, it needs clear signals. But modern life is a collection of conflicting signals. This mismatch happens on two fronts. The obvious one of artificial light, and a more subtle one involving a force we rarely think about. Part 1. The obvious suspect, the presence of artificial light. It begins in your eyes, but not with the cells you use for vision. Your eyes have a third type of photoreceptor, discovered relatively recently, called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells or IPRGCs. Their job is not to form images. Their job is to sense the overall brightness of the light in your environment. They are, in essence, the light meter for your brain's clock. These cells contain a photopigment called melanopsin*, which is especially sensitive to the spectrum of light that is abundant in natural daylight. When morning sunlight enters your eyes, these cells send a powerful signal to your SCN that says, it is daytime. Activate. This signal starts your circadian day. It triggers the release of cortisol, raises your body temperature, and, most critically, it tells a small gland in your brain, the pineal gland, to stop producing melatonin. You can think of melatonin as the hormone of darkness. Its release is controlled by the SCN. When the SCN perceives darkness, it allows the pineal gland to begin releasing melatonin. As its levels rise in the evening, you feel drowsy, and your brain is guided gently towards sleep. Melatonin does not force you to sleep like a pill. It simply opens the gate for sleep to happen naturally. The system is beautifully simple. Light during the day suppresses melatonin. Darkness at night permits its release. Now, we introduce the source of the confusion: modern artificial light. For millions of years, sunset meant the end of bright light. Light from a fire or the moon is thousands of times dimmer than daylight. This predictable darkness was the cue the brain needed to begin releasing melatonin. But our world stays bright. We turn on overhead lights. We sit in front of televisions. And we hold small, intensely bright screens just inches from our faces. Each of these devices emits light that your brain can interpret as daytime. When you look at a bright screen at 10 p.m., you are sending a signal to your SCN that says, it is still day. Stay alert. Do not release melatonin. Your brain, with its ancient programming, believes the light. It obeys. The SCN tells the pineal gland to wait. The gate to sleep remains closed. This is the core of the paradox. You feel tired from the day. Your body needs rest. But because you have been in bright light, your brain's master clock is convinced it is still daytime. It continues to promote alertness, fighting against your body's fatigue. You are tired, but you are also wired. The issue is not just about the blue light from screens, though that is a factor. The larger issue is simply the intensity and timing of any light. Studies have shown that exposure to even normal indoor lighting in the hours before bed can significantly delay the rise of melatonin. The lights in your own home can be enough to alter your brain chemistry and disrupt your sleep. This is more than feeling groggy. Chronic circadian disruption is linked to a range of long-term health issues. You are, in effect, giving yourself a mild form of jet lag every night. Part 2. The unseen factor, gravity's subtle role. This story would be incomplete if we only looked at light. There is another, more fundamental force that our biology evolved with, a constant presence that silently anchors our internal rhythms. That force is gravity. This may sound strange, but the evidence for it comes from one of the most extreme environments humans have explored: outer space. For decades, astronauts have reported significant sleep problems. For a long time, scientists thought this was due to stress or confinement. But as research became more sophisticated, a quiet contributor has emerged: the absence of gravity itself. To understand this, scientists use microgravity analogs on Earth, like head-down tilt bed rest studies. In these experiments, volunteers lie in a bed tilted slightly downward for weeks at a time. This position mimics some of the effects of weightlessness. The results from these studies are profound. Participants' sleep often becomes fragmented. Their nightly sleep time drops, and their body temperature rhythms, normally synchronized with sleep, can become weaker. Why would this be? Gravity appears to act as a subtle but constant reinforcement signal. On Earth, your day is defined by a clear postural cycle. You stand and walk during the day, and you lie down at night. The simple act of being upright, working against gravity, involves countless physiological signals. Your blood pressure adjusts. Your muscles are engaged. These signals provide a steady stream of feedback to the SCN, reinforcing the message. We are in the active daytime phase. When you lie down to sleep, these signals change completely. This shift provides another clear message. We are in the inactive nighttime phase. In microgravity, this feedback loop is disrupted. The constant, grounding force that helps differentiate day from night is gone. Without this gravitational anchor, the SCN signals can become weaker. The conductor's beat becomes fainter. What does this mean for those of us on Earth? A sedentary lifestyle, where you spend most of your day sitting, may deprive your body of the strong gravitational cues it evolved to expect. The postural shifts are minimal. The feedback signals to your SCN are weak and monotonous. In a sense, you are blurring the lines between your active day and your restful night. This, combined with the presence of artificial light at night, creates a perfect storm for circadian confusion. Your clock is getting weak, daytime, signals from your lack of movement, and strong, daytime, signals from your phone at 11 p.m. It is no wonder it hesitates to release the melatonin you need. It isn't broken, it is just profoundly confused. Taking back control. How to resync your ancient clock. Understanding the mismatch is the first step. Now, we move to the most important part: re-establishing clarity. The solution is not about fighting our biology, but about working with it. It is about learning to speak your body's ancient language. It is about sending clear, powerful signals to your master clock to re-anchor it in reality. The strategy is to create a day of such stark contrast between bright light and true darkness that your brain will have no choice but to listen. Part 1. The Morning Anchor. The single most effective thing you can do to improve your sleep tonight is to manage your light exposure tomorrow morning. Sleep quality at night is set by the actions you take when you wake up. The goal is to send a massive, unambiguous, start signal to your SCN. The prescription is simple. Within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, get outside for at least 10 to 15 minutes of natural light exposure. Let's break down why each part of that is important. Within 30 to 60 minutes, this is a crucial window. When you wake up, your brain is most receptive to the light signal that will set its clock for the day. Doing it later is better than nothing, but it is far less effective. Get outside. Viewing sunlight through a window is not enough. Windows filter out a significant portion of the light that is most effective at stimulating the clock. The intensity or lux of light outside is many times greater than it is indoors. Your brain evolved to expect a massive dose of bright light in the morning. Natural light. This does not mean you need to stare at the sun. Never do that. It simply means being outside without sunglasses. Regular eyeglasses or contact lenses are fine. But sunglasses are designed to reduce light intensity and will defeat the purpose. 10 to 15 minutes, on a clear day, this is all it takes. If it is heavily overcast, the intensity is lower, so you may need to extend your time to 20 or 30 minutes to get the same biological effect. When you do this, two things happen. First, the bright light tells the SCN to stop any lingering melatonin, promoting immediate alertness. Second, and this is the secret to better sleep at night, this morning light starts a process. Your SCN essentially notes the time and, in approximately 12 to 14 hours, it will begin to cue the release of melatonin. By getting morning sunlight, you are programming the timely release of melatonin for that evening. Part 2. The Evening Shield. If the morning is about seeking light, the evening is about welcoming darkness. You spent the morning programming your melatonin release, now you have to protect it. The goal is to create an electronic sundown in your home. Starting 2 to 3 hours before bed, begin to systematically reduce sources of bright light, especially overhead light. Bright light coming from above is a powerful daytime signal. In the evening, you want to mimic the light of a sunset or a campfire. This means turning off bright overhead lights and using dimmer, warmer lamps. Now, we must address the biggest offender: screens. Ideally, you should put all screens away at least 1 hour before bed. Many devices have night modes or blue light filters. While these tools can help, they are not a perfect solution. The sheer brightness of the screen can still be enough to interfere with melatonin. It is also about more than just light. It is about allowing the mind to quiet down, to shift away from the mental stimulation that screens demand. Replace that last hour of screen time with something relaxing that does not involve a bright light. Read a physical book under a dim lamp. Listen to music. Stretch gently. Take a warm bath. These activities not only reduce your light exposure but also help to lower your body's stress response, further preparing you for sleep. Part 3. The supporting signals. Once you have established a clear rhythm of light and dark, you can add other cues to support your circadian rhythm. First, remember the lesson from gravity. The solution to a sedentary life is simple: move. Break up long periods of sitting. Stand up from your desk. Go for a short walk. These small bouts of activity, of working against gravity, send reinforcing, daytime signals to your SCN, making the distinction between day and night even clearer. Second, consider your meal timing. Food is another signal for your body. Eating at consistent times each day helps to anchor your rhythm. A large meal eaten late at night is particularly disruptive, telling your body to digest and metabolize at the exact moment it is trying to power down. Try to eat your last large meal at least 3 hours before bed. Finally, manage your temperature. Your core body temperature naturally needs to drop by about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate sleep. Keeping your bedroom cool is one of the best ways to do this, somewhere around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. You can also help this process by taking a warm bath or shower 1 to 2 hours before bed. When you get out, your core body temperature falls as heat radiates away from your skin, powerfully signaling to your brain that it is time for sleep. By combining these strategies, morning sun, evening darkness, daytime movement, and a cool environment, you are no longer sending mixed messages. You are providing a symphony of clear, coordinated signals. You are speaking your body's language. Conclusion: we have journeyed deep into our own biology to understand a profound truth. The feeling of being tired but wired is not a psychological quirk. It is a biological mismatch. It is the signature of a conflict between our ancient genetics and our modern, artificially lit, often sedentary world. We have explored the invisible force, our own powerful circadian rhythm, and seen how it can be confused by the signals of modern life. We have seen how light at the wrong time can trick our brain into believing it is day, and how a lack of movement can weaken the distinction between activity and rest. But this knowledge is not a cause for despair. It is a source of empowerment. The struggle for sleep is not a battle to be won by forcing the mind to shut down. It is a dance to be learned, a rhythm to be rejoined. It does not require a massive overhaul of your life. It starts with a few simple principles. 1. Anchor your morning. Greet the sun. Let bright, natural light tell your brain that the day has begun. 2. Protect your evening. Create a digital sunset. Dim the lights and put away the screens, allowing darkness to send its sacred signal for rest. 3. Honor movement. Stand up against gravity. Remind your body of the difference between an active day and a quiet night. You hold the ability to align with this ancient force. You can start tonight and give your body the deep, restorative sleep it has been asking for. It all begins with a single sunrise. If this quiet exploration into your body's hidden rhythms helped you unwind, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And feel free to share in the comments what simple changes have helped you find better rest. Why your body chooses to sleep on its side. You may fall asleep in one position, only to awaken in another entirely. This nightly migration is often dismissed as a random search for comfort, a series of meaningless adjustments in the dark. But this is not a random act. The movements your body makes during sleep are not arbitrary. They represent a series of precise, unconscious calibrations, a silent and sophisticated negotiation with one of the most constant forces in our world, gravity. It is a process designed to maintain respiration, optimize blood flow, and even facilitate the cleaning of the brain. And the position the human organism consistently defaults to, the solution it arrives at to solve these fundamental problems, is the lateral position, sleeping on its side. This is an exploration of that nightly phenomenon. We will examine the secret language of the sleeping body and uncover the profound, physiological reasons why, when presented with the challenges of a body at rest, the side sleeping posture is so often the result. The myth of the random adjustment. Most of us consider our sleeping posture to be a matter of simple habit. We have a preferred position when we first lie down, and we assume any subsequent movement is an instinctive search for a more comfortable arrangement. We believe the conscious mind makes the initial choice, and the rest of the night is a chaotic response to minor discomfort. The truth, however, is substantially more complex. Your sleep position is not a passive state, but an active, ongoing process of physiological optimization. Each shift is a calculated response to critical problems that arise the moment you become horizontal. The conductor of this silent process is a force that dictates the function of every cell in your body, gravity. From the moment you lie down, your body becomes a physical object subject to constant downward pressure. This pressure impacts the flow of air into the lungs, the circulation of blood, the process of digestion, and the removal of metabolic waste from the brain. The body, in its inherent wisdom, understands this. It recognizes that certain postures create physiological obstacles, while others offer elegant solutions. The nightly shift from the back or stomach to the side is rarely a coincidence. It is a strategic maneuver in a quiet, nightly effort of survival and restoration. Your body is intelligently navigating its own internal architecture under the relentless influence of this fundamental force. Let us discard the myth of the random shuffle. Instead, we should reframe our perspective. The body is a complex system working to ensure all its internal processes run smoothly, to perform critical maintenance, and to manage the unyielding constant of gravity. The master plan for a successful night of repair and recovery almost always leads to the same conclusion. The lateral position is the most efficient and protective choice it can make. The gravity foundation, our unseen environmental constant. To understand the body's preference for the lateral position, we must first appreciate the immense and often overlooked role that gravity plays in our sleep. We perceive gravity as the force that holds us to the earth, but its influence is far more intimate and biologically profound. Gravity is a fundamental environmental signal that helps regulate the very structure of sleep. The most compelling evidence for this comes from a place where gravity is absent: microgravity environments in space. For decades, astronauts have reported significant sleep disturbances. One might assume sleeping in weightlessness would be effortless, yet the reality is the opposite. Studies on astronauts reveal a crucial truth. When you remove gravity, the architecture of sleep begins to degrade. Polysomnographic recordings show that in microgravity, sleep-disordered breathing events like apneas and snoring virtually disappear. This proves that gravity is a primary cause of these issues on Earth. However, despite this improvement, overall sleep quality and duration often decrease. The reason for this is that on Earth, gravity acts as an anchor for our biological rhythms. The constant downward pull is a key environmental cue our bodies use to organize our internal clocks. When we lie down to sleep, this interaction continues. The natural cycle of shifting our posture is, in part, a way for the body to interact with this force, altering how it affects our internal systems. This subtle dance helps reinforce our circadian rhythms, the 24-hour cycles governing sleepiness, body temperature, and hormone release. In the weightlessness of space, this fundamental anchor is lost. The body's internal clock can become disoriented, leading to fragmented and less restorative sleep. This concept has direct implications for all of us. The fact that sleep is so deeply intertwined with gravity means that how we position ourselves in relation to its pull is of critical importance. Your posture during sleep is not just about comfort. It is about aligning the body in a way that allows gravity to be a helpful constant rather than a disruptive adversary. When your body rolls onto its side, it is making a decision based on this fundamental principle. It is moving into a position where the vector of gravitational force is less likely to cause obstruction and more likely to support the essential work of the night. It is seeking a state of physical harmony where respiration is easy, circulation is efficient, and the brain can perform its maintenance duties without interference. The problems the body is solving, respiration and airflow. Of all the nightly challenges the body faces, none is more critical than maintaining an open airway. Every cell requires a constant supply of oxygen, and the hours spent asleep are no exception. This is where the negotiation with gravity becomes most apparent, and where the strategic advantage of side sleeping becomes clear. The body's primary motivation for shifting position is often an unconscious response to the mechanics of breathing. Let's first examine the position that often marks the start of this nightly process: sleeping on the back. Problem 1. Airway collapse, supine position. When you lie on your back, known as the supine position, you create a direct confrontation with gravity. The anatomy of your upper airway includes several soft, pliable structures: the tongue, the soft palate, and the uvula. While you are awake, muscle tone holds these tissues in place. But upon falling asleep, your muscles relax. In the supine position, gravity pulls these relaxed tissues directly downward, toward the back of your throat. This creates a significant narrowing of the pharynx, the primary passageway for air. For millions, this narrowing manifests as snoring. Snoring is not a harmless noise. It is the sound of turbulence, the vibration of soft tissues as air struggles to move through a constricted passage. It is an audible indicator of a nightly struggle for oxygen. In more severe cases, this gravitational collapse can lead to obstructive sleep apnea, a complete obstruction of the airway. When this occurs, you cease breathing for several seconds. The brain, detecting plunging oxygen levels, triggers a micro-arousal, a brief awakening to re-engage muscles and open the airway. These events can happen hundreds of times per night, shattering the deep, restorative stages of sleep. A person can spend 8 hours in bed yet feel exhausted, because their body was engaged in a repetitive, high-stakes effort to maintain its most essential function. The solution: the open channel, lateral position. Now, consider what happens when the body, sensing this difficulty, rolls onto its side. This simple shift alters the physics entirely. In the lateral position, gravity no longer pulls the tongue and soft tissues posteriorly into the airway. Instead, it pulls them harmlessly to the side. The airway remains open, a clear channel for air to flow freely. The turbulence and the need for micro-arousals cease. The nervous system registers the free flow of oxygen as a sign of safety, allowing for descent into the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. This is why the lateral position is almost universally recommended for individuals with breathing issues. It is a physiological necessity the body often discovers on its own. Problem 2. Chest compression, prone position. If back sleeping is problematic, stomach sleeping, or the prone position, might seem like an alternative. By lying face down, gravity is less likely to pull the tongue into the airway. However, this position introduces a new set of biomechanical problems. Body weight, combined with upward pressure from the mattress, compresses the ribcage. This physically restricts the movement of the diaphragm, the primary muscle of respiration. The body must then compensate by relying on less efficient accessory muscles in the chest and back to draw in air. This is a more strenuous way to breathe. Furthermore, to breathe in this position, the head must be turned sharply to one side for hours. This unnatural rotation places significant strain on the cervical vertebrae and associated muscles and can even constrict blood flow. Waking with a stiff neck or headache is a common consequence. The body recognizes this inefficiency. While it may have shifted to the prone position to escape airway collapse, it soon learns this is not a sustainable solution. The search for an optimal posture continues, and once again, it leads to the side, which offers an open airway without the mechanical restriction of the chest. The circulation story and neurological maintenance. The body's nightly quest for an optimal position is also about ensuring the circulatory system can function efficiently. The position you sleep in can either help or hinder this vital process, and the deciding factor, once again, is gravity. The left side advantage. Aiding systemic flow. The human body is not internally symmetrical. The placement of our organs creates a unique internal landscape, and sleeping on the left side appears to work in harmony with this layout. Consider the heart. The aorta, the body's largest artery, arches out from the heart and descends through the body on the left side of the spine. When you sleep on your left side, gravity can subtly assist the heart in pumping blood into this descending aorta. Concurrently, the vena cava, the large vein that carries deoxygenated blood from the lower body back to the heart, runs along the right side of your spine. Lying on the left side prevents the weight of other organs from compressing this crucial vein, allowing for an unimpeded return of blood to the heart. For this reason, left side sleeping is often recommended during pregnancy, as it improves circulation to the fetus and prevents the weight of the uterus from compressing the mother's vena cava. This left side preference may also extend to the lymphatic system, which helps rid the body of toxins and waste. The thoracic duct, the largest lymphatic vessel, is located on the left side. It is theorized that sleeping on the left may allow gravity to assist the drainage of lymph fluid toward this duct. The brain's waste clearance mechanism, the glymphatic system. Perhaps one of the most significant recent discoveries in sleep science is the role of the glymphatic system. During the day, brain activity produces metabolic waste, including proteins like beta amyloid, which is associated with neurodegenerative diseases. At night, during sleep, the channels between brain cells expand, and cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, is pumped through the brain, washing away these toxic byproducts. This cleaning process is a primary reason sleep is so critical for cognitive health. Research, primarily in animal models, has shown that this glymphatic clearance is most efficient when the subject is in the lateral, or side, position, compared to the supine or prone positions. The precise mechanism is still being investigated, but it is believed the side position may reduce pressure on certain vessels and allow for optimal flow and drainage of CSF. While human conformation is an ongoing area of study, this presents a compelling hypothesis. The body may be subconsciously guided to the side position not just to help the heart or lungs, but to facilitate the cleaning of its most vital organ. A note on the right side. While the left side appears to have numerous advantages, there is evidence that sleeping on the right side may be preferable for individuals with certain heart conditions. For a healthy heart, the slight shift caused by gravity when lying on the left is insignificant. But for someone with a condition like congestive heart failure, the right side position may reduce discomfort by keeping the heart more securely in place within the chest cavity. This highlights that the body's positional choice is highly individualized and adaptive. The digestive dilemma, managing internal chemistry. The nightly management of the body extends into the abdomen. The digestive system continues to process food during sleep, and here too, posture plays a significant role in preventing discomfort, particularly acid reflux. To understand this, we must consider our gastric geography. The stomach is a J-shaped organ located predominantly on the left side of the body. The valve between the esophagus and the stomach, The lower esophageal sphincter, less, is designed to keep stomach acid contained. When this valve relaxes improperly, it can lead to gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD. The left side solution. Aided by physics. When you lie on your left side, you align your digestive system in its most advantageous configuration. The stomach hangs below the esophagus. In this position, the pool of gastric acid rests in the bottom curve of the stomach, far from the less valve. Gravity is actively helping to keep the stomach's contents where they belong. Even if the less relaxes, it is much more difficult for acid to travel, uphill, into the esophagus. This is why physicians almost universally recommend that people with heartburn sleep on their left side. It is a non-pharmacological, gravity-based solution. The body, through unconscious trial and error, learns this simple lesson. Lying on the left leads to less irritation and more uninterrupted sleep. The right side and back lying problem. Conversely, when you shift to your right side, the stomach is positioned above the esophagus. The less valve is now below the level of the stomach acid. In this orientation, gravity works against you. Any relaxation of the valve creates a condition where acid can flow directly into the esophagus. Studies have confirmed that individuals with GERD experience more frequent and prolonged reflux episodes when sleeping on their right side compared to their left. Sleeping on your back presents a similar issue. The stomach and esophagus are more level, but there is no gravitational barrier to prevent acid from pooling near the less and refluxing into the esophagus. The nightly shift to the side, particularly the left, is therefore a precise maneuver to manage internal chemistry and ensure the quiet work of digestion can proceed without painful interruption. Limitations and optimization of the lateral position. While a powerful case has been made for side sleeping as the body's preferred position, it is not without its own potential downsides. Recognizing these limitations is crucial for a complete understanding and allows for a final, practical step: optimizing the posture to maximize its benefits. Potential downsides of side sleeping. The most common issue for side sleepers is shoulder pain. A significant portion of the upper body's weight rests on the shoulder joint against the mattress, which can compress nerves and tendons, leading to numbness or pain. A second issue is spinal alignment. The common tendency for the top leg to slide forward and down causes a rotation in the pelvis and a twist in the lumbar spine. Over many hours, this sustained torsion can strain muscles and ligaments, leading to morning stiffness or pain. The body is aware of these pressures. The reason you shift from one side to the other throughout the night is partly your brain's response to the mounting pressure on your shoulder and hip, distributing the load over time. How to optimize side sleeping for maximum benefit. These downsides can be mitigated with simple biomechanical supports. The goal is not to abandon side sleeping, but to perfect it, to create a supportive environment that maintains proper alignment. **1. The head pillow. ***The pillow's singular job is to fill the space between your head and the mattress, keeping your neck in a perfectly straight line with the rest of your spine. For side sleepers, a firmer, thicker pillow is generally required to prevent the head from dropping or being pushed upward, which strains neck muscles. The objective is a neutral spine. **2. The knee pillow. This is the key to hip and back health. Placing a firm pillow between your knees prevents the top leg from sliding forward. This simple prop stacks your hips vertically and keeps the pelvis neutral, eliminating the twisting force on your lower back. **3. The hugging pillow. Hugging a pillow can provide support for the top arm and shoulder, preventing it from collapsing downward and forward, which can exacerbate shoulder rounding and neck tension. By creating this three-point support system, you transform the side sleeping position. You are no longer just passively lying on your side. You are actively creating a perfectly aligned, pressure-free environment for your body to perform its vital nightly work. The nightly conversation. As this journey through the science of sleep posture concludes, a clear picture emerges. The way you sleep is not a matter of arbitrary habit. It is a dynamic and intelligent process, a silent conversation between the body and the fundamental forces that govern our world. Every night, the body is tasked with ensuring a constant flow of oxygen, managing the seamless circulation of blood, keeping the acids of digestion contained, and washing the brain clean of metabolic waste. When faced with these critical tasks, the unconscious mind, the engineer of our physiology, consistently guides the body away from the precarious postures of the back or stomach, and into the safe harbor of the side. It is a choice driven not by whim, but by a deep, instinctual wisdom. A wisdom that science is only now beginning to fully chart. The next time you awaken on your side, do not see it as a random turn. See it for what it is. A sign that your body was actively working on your behalf, navigating the constant force of gravity to keep you safe and healthy throughout the night. Your sleep position is a testament to the body's incredible, quiet ability to protect and restore itself. The study of sleep is an ongoing field of discovery. If this exploration of the body's nightly processes was of interest, we will continue to examine these biological systems in future videos. We are, as always, interested to read your thoughtful observations in the comments below. Why astronauts can't sleep in zero gravity? For most of us, sleep is a quiet surrender. We lie down, the world narrows, and a force we rarely think about holds us in place. But what happens when that force disappears? What if down is no longer a direction, but just a memory? For astronauts living in orbit, this is not a philosophical question. It is the nightly challenge of finding rest in a world without weight. Their experience uncovers a quiet truth about how deeply our own sleep is connected to the planet we live on. This is a journey into that experience. Not a story of failure, but of adaptation. It reveals the invisible architecture that gravity provides for rest, and what happens when that architecture is removed. If this kind of calm exploration helps you unwind, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And wherever you are right now, whether it's day or night, feel free to share what surprised you most about this story in the comments below. The constant partner, sleep on Earth. Before we can understand sleep in space, we have to look closer at sleep on Earth. It is more than just closing your eyes. It is a subtle, intricate process, quietly shaped by gravity's constant presence. When you lie down, the feeling of weight pressing you gently into your mattress is a fundamental signal. It is an anchor, a reassurance that has informed our biology for millions of years. Think of the transition. Moving from standing to lying down allows gravity to reorganize your internal landscape. Your organs settle. Your heart, which worked all day to pump blood upward, gets a slight reprieve. This is not a passive event. It is a gravity-assisted shift toward a state of rest. Even the act of breathing changes. On Earth, when we lie down, the mechanics of our diaphragm and lungs shift slightly. Our breathing pattern often slows and deepens, one of many cues that helps the body's rest and digest network take over. This neurological shift is what allows us to fall into deep, restorative sleep. Gravity is a silent partner in this process. Perhaps most importantly, gravity's influence is part of the environment in which one of sleep's most critical functions happens: cleaning the brain. At night, a process known as the glymphatic system becomes more active. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through the brain, washing away metabolic waste. While this system does function in microgravity, its efficiency is influenced by posture and pressure gradients that our bodies are accustomed to on Earth. The simple act of lying down is part of a pattern our biology has come to expect. Sleep on Earth is not something we do alone. It is a partnership, a quiet symphony conducted by the invisible force we live with every moment. It is a lullaby written into the laws of physics. But in orbit, the conductor is gone, and the body must learn to play in an entirely new key. The severance, from weight to weightlessness. The journey into that silence begins with a violent transition. For about 8.5 minutes during a rocket launch, an astronaut is pinned to their seat by a force of 3 to 4 gigaseconds. Their body feels immensely heavy. Breathing becomes a conscious effort. The world is reduced to vibration and overwhelming sound. It is the absolute opposite of weightlessness. And then, in an instant, it stops. Main engine cut off. The roar vanishes, replaced by a profound quiet. The crushing weight is gone. A dropped pen does not fall. It hangs in the air, a small testament to a new reality. This is the moment of severance when the lifelong connection to gravity is cut. The body's first reaction is confusion. The vestibular system in the inner ear, which gives us our sense of up and down, is suddenly lost. It sends a stream of contradictory signals to the brain. The eyes see a ceiling, but the inner ear reports that there is no up at all. It can feel like falling, being upside down, and tumbling through a void, all at once. This sensory conflict can trigger space adaptation syndrome, a condition similar to extreme motion sickness. Around 70% of astronauts experience it, facing nausea, disorientation, and headaches for their first few days in orbit. Trying to sleep through this is nearly impossible. It is a physiological alarm that refuses to be turned off, the body's first protest against its new environment. Astronauts learn to move with intention, to trust their eyes over their other senses. It is a jarring introduction to a world without weight, a profound disconnection from their own biology. This initial shock is just the beginning. The longer one stays, the more the absence of gravity begins to quietly dismantle the processes that should bring rest. The brain adrift, when down, disappears. After the first few days, a more subtle challenge emerges. It is a disorientation that comes from the loss of a concept so fundamental, we don't even realize it's a sense, the concept of down. On Earth, our world is built around it. We sit down, we lie down. Our mental map of the world has a floor. In space, that map is gone. Every surface is a potential wall, ceiling, or floor. Retired astronaut Scott Kelly described needing to Velcro his head to a cushion just to simulate the feeling of a pillow. Without that pressure, his head would float, and his neck muscles wouldn't fully relax. This lack of a directional anchor creates a constant, low-level cognitive load. Astronauts often choose to orient themselves based on the lettering on equipment, adopting a local down. But that can change from one module to the next. Imagine trying to sleep in a room where the floor can become the ceiling if you turn your head. Sleep requires a feeling of safety, of stability. It is a voluntary surrender. In a world with no stable down, the brain can be reluctant to let go completely. There's a lingering, subconscious sense of being adrift. The physical act of sleeping becomes a deliberate process. On the International Space Station, astronauts don't have beds. They have small crew cabins where they zip themselves into a sleeping bag tethered to a wall. This is partly to keep them from floating into equipment, but it's also to provide a sense of enclosure. The light pressure of the bag offers a faint echo of the weight of blankets, a sensory cue that can help the brain relax. And yet, some astronauts report that sleeping in space can be uniquely comfortable. With no pressure points, the body can float in a state of perfect neutrality. The struggle, for many, is not the physical feeling, but the psychological one. The very idea of lying down loses its meaning, and with it, a key trigger for sleep is gone. It's a quiet battle against a lifetime of instinct, fought every night. The inverted body, the shift within. While the mind feels adrift, the body is dealing with a more direct consequence of microgravity, a massive, internal shift of fluid. On Earth, gravity pulls about 1.5 to 2 liters of bodily fluid down into our legs. Our cardiovascular system is built to constantly push it back up. The moment an astronaut enters microgravity, that downward pull vanishes. The fluid immediately migrates upward into the chest, neck, and head. This leads to what astronauts call puffy head, bird legs syndrome. Their faces become swollen, their legs shrink, and they feel a constant pressure in their heads. This internal flood has consequences for sleep. The first is chronic nasal congestion. The swollen membranes in the sinuses make it difficult to breathe through the nose, much like having a bad head cold. Anyone who has tried to sleep while congested knows how disruptive this can be. This fluid shift also increases pressure inside the skull. This can lead to headaches and is a key area of study for a condition called spaceflight-associated neuroocular syndrome, or SANS, where pressure on the back of the eye can affect vision. To study this without going to space, scientists use bed rest studies, where volunteers lie in a bed tilted 6 degrees head down for weeks. Participants in these studies often report a decline in sleep quality, mirroring the astronauts' experience. On Earth, lying down is a signal of relief. The pressure in our body equalizes. In space, that relief never comes. Whether an astronaut is working or tethered in a sleeping bag, the fluid distribution is largely the same. Their body is in a state that feels perpetually inverted, a sensation that turns the place of rest into a chamber of quiet, constant pressure. The invisible cloud, the air you exhale. Of all the subtle challenges, one of the strangest is also one of the most invisible: the air you breathe out. Here on Earth, we exist within a system of natural convection. The warm, carbon dioxide-rich air you exhale is less dense than the cooler air around it, so it naturally rises and disperses. This is a life-sustaining process, a quiet gift from gravity that we never notice. In microgravity, convection does not happen. There is no up for warm air to rise to. When an astronaut exhales, the CO2 doesn't go anywhere. It can form a stagnant, invisible bubble around their head. This buildup doesn't pose a risk of suffocation, as the station's life support systems are robust. But it does affect sleep. Elevated CO2 levels can lead to morning headaches, a feeling of grogginess, and can disrupt the deeper stages of sleep. Astronauts have described waking with a headache and a feeling of needing air. To solve this, the sleeping quarters on the ISS are designed with constant ventilation. A fan directs a steady stream of fresh air across the astronaut's face. This artificial breeze does the work that gravity does for free on Earth, blowing away the CO2 cloud. But this solution creates its own problem: noise. The ISS is never truly quiet. It is a machine, a complex hum of pumps, computers, and life support systems that run 24 hours a day, with an ambient noise level like a nearby vacuum cleaner. Add to that the sound of a fan blowing directly at your face. Many astronauts wear earplugs, but they must still be able to hear critical alarms. It is a constant trade-off. The choice is between the noise of the life-saving fan, or a night of poor sleep in a cloud of your own breath. It shows how an environment without gravity turns a simple act like breathing into a complex engineering problem. The broken clock, chasing 16 suns. Our bodies have an internal clock, a circadian rhythm shaped by the steady 24-hour cycle of light and dark on Earth. Light is the most powerful signal for this clock. Morning light promotes alertness. Darkness cues the brain to produce melatonin, the hormone that prepares us for sleep. On the International Space Station, this fundamental rhythm is shattered. The station orbits the Earth every 90 minutes, meaning astronauts witness 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every single day. A brilliant sunrise can flood the cabin, only to be replaced by total darkness 45 minutes later. This rapid cycling of light and dark throws the body's internal clock into chaos. It is like a permanent state of jet lag. The brain doesn't know when to be awake and when to be asleep. As a result, astronauts often get less sleep than they are scheduled for, averaging around 6 hours a night, and the sleep they do get can be less restorative. To combat this, Mission planners impose a rigid 24-hour schedule based on coordinated universal time. During designated sleep periods, astronauts cover the station's windows to block out the sun. In recent years, NASA has also installed a lighting system with LEDs that change color and intensity. The lights are bright and blue-toned in the artificial morning to promote wakefulness, and shift to a dim, reddish hue in the evening to signal that it's time to rest. Even with these measures, many astronauts still find it difficult. The use of sleep-promoting medication is common. They are in a quiet fight against their own biology, living on a broken clock in an environment that is constantly trying to pull them out of sync with the rhythm of life they have always known. The return, the ghost of weightlessness. After months in orbit, the mission ends. The return to Earth is, in its own way, as jarring as the departure. And when the hatch opens, a new challenge begins: readapting to gravity. The first sensation is one of immense, profound weight. Every limb feels heavy. Just lifting an arm requires effort. Their bodies have, in a sense, forgotten how to live in a 1G environment. One might expect them to sleep for days, but sleep is often disrupted for weeks or months. Many astronauts experience a REM rebound. REM sleep, the stage associated with dreaming, is often reduced in space. Back on Earth, the body seems to try to catch up. This can lead to incredibly vivid and intense dreams, as the brain processes the return to a world of weight. Their bodies have to relearn the partnership with gravity. The vestibular system, dormant in space, is suddenly bombarded with signals, leading to a kind of Earth sickness. All of these factors conspire against rest. It is as if the ghost of weightlessness follows them home, haunting their terrestrial beds. The fact that sleep remains disrupted, even in a familiar, quiet, dark room, shows how deeply microgravity affects us. Our relationship with gravity is not something that can be switched on and off. We are creatures of this planet, and it takes time to truly come home. Our silent anchor. The story of why astronauts struggle with sleep is more than a list of problems. It is a quiet revelation. By leaving gravity behind, we have inadvertently conducted the most unusual experiment on sleep in human history. In doing so, we have revealed its hidden role in our own lives. The astronaut's struggle shows us that gravity is our anchor, providing a sense of stability that allows the mind to surrender to sleep. The internal fluid shifts show that gravity is our body's quiet regulator, arranging our internal systems for rest. The invisible CO2 bubble reminds us that gravity is our silent ventilator, an automatic life support system we never knew we had. Each of these challenges holds up a mirror. It reminds us that a good night's sleep is not something we achieve alone. It is a gift, given to us by the planet we live on. We have come to see gravity as a limitation, a force that holds us to the ground. But the sleepless nights of astronauts tell a different story. They suggest that gravity is not a cage, it is a cradle. It is the invisible constant that rocks us to sleep, an anchor that allows the mind and body to find true rest. The next time you lie down and feel the weight of your own body, take a moment. That feeling is not a burden. It is the silent, steady guardian of your sleep. Why astronauts can never truly rest. Imagine a place so quiet you can hear your own body working. A place without up or down, where every muscle can finally let go. It sounds like the perfect setting for sleep, a gentle chamber floating through the silent, velvet dark. But for an astronaut, this quiet void is where a subtle struggle begins. In space, the very body that carried you there becomes an unfamiliar landscape. The deep, restorative sleep we know on Earth becomes a distant memory. The rules of biology, shaped by millions of years on a spinning planet with a constant pull, are quietly set adrift. So, what is it about this final frontier that makes rest so difficult? The answer reveals a profound connection to the world we leave behind. The myth of a silent, peaceful void. Our idea of space is often one of profound silence. an endless, peaceful quiet. But for those living on the International Space Station, the reality is something else entirely. Space is not silent, it is a machine. A complex, life-sustaining machine that is always, relentlessly, active. From the moment an astronaut enters the ISS, their ears are met with a constant hum. It's the sound of life support, of fans and pumps circulating air, of scientific instruments running day and night. This isn't a gentle background noise you can easily ignore. The noise level on the station is kept below a certain threshold, but it is persistent, like a loud appliance running in the next room, all day, all night. In a conversation online, astronaut Scott Kelly, who spent nearly a year in orbit, shared what it was like. "There are humming noises on station that affect my sleep," he said, "so I wear earplugs to bed." Earplugs are standard equipment, a fundamental tool in the nightly search for a few hours of quiet. But even with them, low-frequency vibrations travel through the station's structure, a constant reminder that you are living inside a machine. The very systems keeping you alive are the same ones that make it hard to find peace. And then there is the light. On Earth, our days and nights are governed by a single, predictable sunrise and sunset. Aboard the ISS, orbiting at over 17,000 miles per hour, astronauts experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24 hours. Imagine trying to sleep while a brilliant, unfiltered sun passes by your window again and again. The station's windows offer breathtaking views, but at night, they must be meticulously covered. The personal crew quarters are small, phone booth-sized cabins designed to be dark, but light can find its way in. Even a small sliver of sunlight, without an atmosphere to scatter it, can be incredibly bright. Because of this, eye masks, like earplugs, are a necessity. There are photographs of astronauts asleep in their modules, a simple dark blindfold strapped across their eyes. It's a quiet image that captures the reality of sleeping in space. Even in the most advanced habitat ever built, rest often comes down to the simplest tools to block out the noise of the machine and the light of the star it orbits. The idea of a peaceful, dark, silent void is the first to fade. The unseen enemy, the body, adrift. While the environment presents its own challenges, the more subtle struggle for sleep happens inside the astronaut's own body. Without the familiar, constant pull of gravity, our physiology, which evolved entirely within its influence, begins to behave in unfamiliar ways. The first system to become untethered is our circadian rhythm. This is our internal, 24-hour biological clock, which governs our sleep-wake cycle. On Earth, this clock is primarily set by the predictable pattern of light and darkness. But with 16 sunrises a day, that primary cue becomes unreliable. Researchers are now learning that gravity itself may act as a quiet, reinforcing signal for this clock. The daily cycle of standing up and lying down creates predictable fluid shifts in the body. Day after day, these physical cues help anchor our 24-hour rhythm. In microgravity, that signal is gone. The body is in a state that feels like constantly lying down, and the internal clock begins to drift. Studies have found that even on a strict schedule, astronauts often get nearly an hour less sleep per night, and report that the sleep they do get feels less restful. This internal confusion is made worse by a strange and uncomfortable physical change, the headward fluid shift. On Earth, gravity pulls a significant amount of fluid down into our legs. In orbit, that fluid shifts upwards, into the torso, neck, and head. Astronauts experience this as a perpetually puffy face and a constant, nagging nasal congestion, like a head cold that never goes away. Imagine trying to get a good night's sleep, every night, while feeling as though you have a stuffy nose and sinus pressure. This can interfere with breathing and makes true relaxation difficult to achieve. But perhaps the most subtle threat to an astronaut's sleep is an invisible one: carbon dioxide. On Earth, when we exhale, the warmer, CO2-rich air naturally rises and moves away, a process called convection, which is driven by gravity. In microgravity, there is no convection. The air doesn't naturally circulate. If an astronaut were to sleep in a still pocket of air, their own exhaled carbon dioxide would form an invisible bubble around their head. As they rebreathed their own exhaust, the CO2 level would rise, leading to headaches and disorientation. This is not just a theoretical risk, it is a known danger. To prevent it, every astronaut's sleeping quarters must have a dedicated fan positioned to blow fresh air across their face all night long. This constant airflow is essential for safety, but it also introduces another source of noise and a constant draft, one more quiet disruption in the search for a comfortable night's sleep. The body, freed from gravity, becomes a place where even the simple act of breathing requires careful engineering. The disorientation of weightlessness. Beyond the noise, the light, and the body's internal confusion, there is a third, more existential challenge to sleeping in space: the profound disorientation of being weightless. We are creatures of up and down, of pressure and release. Sleep, for us, is deeply connected to the act of lying down, of surrendering our weight to a supportive surface. In space, all of that is gone. As former astronaut Chris Hadfield explains, you don't need a mattress or a pillow in space because your body doesn't need to be held up. You can relax every muscle, and you'll simply float. While this might sound peaceful, the reality is deeply unfamiliar. Astronauts don't sleep on anything. They sleep in a sleeping bag tethered to a wall, or what they decide is the wall, since up and down no longer have meaning. This tethering is crucial. Without it, an astronaut would drift, potentially bumping into sensitive equipment. But being strapped in place creates its own odd sensations. The natural resting posture in microgravity is often described as a zombie pose, where the arms float up to about shoulder height. Many astronauts find this unsettling and choose to tuck their arms inside the sleeping bag to keep them from floating in front of their faces. Then there is the missing feeling of pressure. On Earth, our sense of where our body is in space is heavily informed by touch. The feeling of a mattress against our back, a pillow under our head, the weight of a blanket. These are powerful sensory signals that tell our brain we are safe and in a position for rest. In space, this entire vocabulary of comfort is gone. Veteran astronaut Scott Kelly reflected on this after his year in space. Sleeping is harder here in space than on a bed because the sleep position here is the same position throughout the day. You don't ever get that sense of gratifying relaxation here that you do on Earth after a long day at work. That gratifying relaxation he speaks of is the feeling of gravity's pull finally being met by a bed. It's a release that astronauts are denied for their entire mission. To make up for this sensory absence, astronauts develop unique habits. Some find the feeling of their head floating freely so disorienting that they will use a gentle strip of Velcro to attach their head to a pillow, not for support, but just for the familiar sensation of contact. The need for the feeling of down is so ingrained in our psychology of sleep that astronauts will invent small, artificial ways to recreate it. You close your eyes, but you are not lying down. You are not standing up. You are simply floating. There is no sensation of settling into bed. Your body exists in a state of perpetual neutrality. This lack of a clear transition from the active state of the day to the resting state of the night further blurs the lines for the brain, making the mental journey into sleep just as strange as the physical one. The data doesn't lie. A scientific breakdown of space sleep. The stories from astronauts paint a clear picture, but the scientific data collected over decades tells its own quiet story. The sleep debt astronauts accumulate is not just a feeling, it is a measurable reality. On paper, astronauts are scheduled for 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep per night. This is a protected period, recognized as crucial for health and performance. However, study after study has shown that astronauts average only about 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep per night. This represents a chronic sleep restriction, a nightly deficit that on Earth, would lead to noticeable declines in performance. For astronauts, this is the norm for months at a time. But the issue is deeper than just duration. The quality of the sleep they get is also different. Sleep is a complex cycle of different stages, including deep slow-wave sleep and rapid eye movement, REM, sleep. Each stage has a vital function, from physical repair to memory consolidation. In microgravity, the architecture of sleep changes. Studies have shown a reduction in the most restorative stages. The amount of deep, slow-wave sleep often decreases, and REM sleep, critical for learning, can be reduced by as much as 25%. Sleep is also more fragmented, with more awakenings during the night. The consequences of this chronic, lower-quality sleep are serious. Studies have linked shorter sleep in astronauts to slower reaction times and higher reported levels of stress. In an environment where a moment's hesitation can have major consequences, this is a significant safety risk. Fatigue and sleep-related issues have been linked, in part, to historical incidents in spaceflight. To manage the persistent difficulty with sleep, a significant number of crew members, with some estimates between 50 and 75%, use sleep-promoting medications at some point during their missions. This reliance on medication is a powerful indicator of how challenging the problem is. The toll is not just on performance, but on health. Ground-based studies, where volunteers spend weeks in a head-down tilt bed to mimic microgravity, have found that this condition disrupts the rhythmic expression of thousands of genes. The changes mirror those seen in conditions of immune suppression and muscle and bone loss, all known effects of both spaceflight and chronic poor sleep. The data is clear. Space is a profoundly different environment for human sleep, and the resulting deficit is a mission-critical risk that science is still working to fully understand. The science of sleep in space is constantly evolving. If this kind of quiet exploration into human biology and the final frontier helps you unwind, consider subscribing to the channel. We explore subjects like this every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. The search for familiarity, engineering rest. Faced with this relentless challenge to astronaut rest, space agencies have spent decades engineering solutions. The effort to secure a good night's sleep in space is a quiet acknowledgement that this problem cannot be ignored. It starts with the sleeping quarters. Each astronaut on the ISS has a private crew cabin. While incredibly small, this privacy is a major evolution from early missions. The cabins are designed to be sanctuaries, located in one of the quieter parts of the station, with walls lined with material to dampen the constant hum. The essential gear goes beyond just the sleeping bag. High-quality earplugs and eye masks are standard issue. But the most critical piece of hardware is the ventilation fan. To prevent the risk of rebreathing exhaled air, a fan ensures a constant, gentle stream of fresh air is directed towards the astronaut's face. The design is a careful balance, powerful enough for safety, but quiet enough not to be another disturbance. Perhaps the most significant countermeasure is the attempt to artificially recreate Earth's 24-hour day. This is done through a combination of strict scheduling and advanced lighting. Mission Control enforces a rigid sleep schedule, and the station itself has been upgraded with programmable LED lights that can change their color and intensity. In the morning, the lights are brighter and bluer to promote alertness. As bedtime approaches, the lighting automatically shifts to a warmer, redder spectrum. This reduction in blue light signals to the astronaut's brain that the day is ending, allowing their natural melatonin production to begin. It's an attempt to impose a terrestrial day-night cycle on an environment that has none. Finally, one of the most effective, though indirect, tools for promoting sleep is the rigorous exercise regimen. Every astronaut exercises for about 2 hours each day on specialized equipment. This is primarily to combat the severe muscle and bone loss that occurs in microgravity. But it has the welcome side effect of creating genuine physical fatigue. As Chris Hadfield noted, after long days of work and physical exercise, at the end of it, you're tired. In the quiet struggle against sleeplessness, engineering physical exhaustion is a key strategy. Why gravity is Earth's ultimate sleep aid. The extraordinary lengths taken to help astronauts rest highlight a profound and often overlooked truth. Gravity is perhaps the single greatest sleep aid we have. Our entire biology of rest evolved in its constant presence, and its absence reveals just how dependent we are on its quiet, pervasive influence. On Earth, we spend our day upright, and gravity pulls fluids down into our legs. When we lie down to sleep, this fluid redistributes. This simple, nightly act helps our body regulate its temperature, a critical part of falling into deep sleep. As we prepare for sleep, our core body temperature needs to drop slightly. This is helped by the fluid shifts that happen when we lie down. In microgravity, where an astronaut is effectively in that state all day, this crucial temperature signal is weakened, making it harder to descend into the deepest stages of sleep. Furthermore, gravity provides an essential form of rest for our muscles. During the day, our postural muscles work tirelessly against gravity. Lying down allows them to finally relax. Scott Kelly touched upon this when he lamented the lack of gratifying relaxation in space. That feeling is the sensation of muscles surrendering their load to a bed, a feeling astronauts are deprived of. The evolutionary link is clear. Life on Earth evolved with the planet's 24-hour rotation and its constant gravitational pull as the two most reliable environmental cues. It's thought that sleep itself evolved in step with these forces. Gravity created the need for periods of rest, and the light cycle provided the schedule. Its absence in space weakens all of the body's internal rhythms, like a clock slowly losing its pendulum. Scientists study this on Earth through long-duration bed rest studies, where volunteers spend months lying in a bed tilted at a slight head-down angle. This position simulates the fluid shifts of microgravity. The results are striking. Participants show many of the same problems as astronauts: fragmented sleep, suppressed immune function, and muscle and bone loss. These studies are our strongest evidence that simply removing the normal effects of gravity is enough to trigger a cascade of health issues, with sleep disruption at the very center. It proves that sleep is not just an absence of wakefulness. It is an active, gravity-dependent process, a nightly dialogue between our bodies and our planet. In space, that dialogue is silenced. The future of sleep in space. As humanity looks toward returning to the Moon and eventually journeying to Mars, solving the sleep problem becomes essential for success. On a 3-year round trip to Mars, the cumulative effects of sleep deprivation could be immense. The challenges will only grow. The spacecraft for these deep space missions offer even tighter quarters. During the long transit, astronauts will be more isolated, and the familiar sight of Earth will shrink to a tiny blue dot, creating psychological pressures we don't yet fully understand. For missions to the Moon, new challenges arise. Future lunar bases might be in areas of permanent shadow, a world of eternal night. On Mars, the challenge is different again. A Martian day, or Sol, is 24 hours and 39 minutes long. This slight mismatch with our internal 24-hour clock could cause a persistent, jet lag-like state for crews trying to adapt. Recognizing these future questions, research is accelerating. Experiments are underway to get the most detailed picture yet of how an astronaut's sleep architecture changes in space. The goal is to develop more effective countermeasures. Looking further ahead, some proposed solutions sound like science fiction. Engineers are studying the possibility of incorporating rotating sections in spacecraft to create artificial gravity. This would be the ultimate solution, allowing astronauts to sleep in an environment their bodies are designed for. Other, more distant ideas include inducing a state of controlled torpor or hibernation to help astronauts endure the long journey. Whatever the solutions may be, one thing is clear: As we push farther from our home planet, we are forced to confront the fundamental, biological limits of the human machine. The quiet struggle for sleep in space is a reminder that we are, and always will be, creatures of Earth, finely adapted to its gravity and its rhythms. Conclusion: the dream of sleeping among the stars, floating peacefully in the quiet void, is a beautiful one. But it remains a dream. The reality for an astronaut is a nightly struggle against a machine that never sleeps, against a star that rises 16 times too often, and against a body that has been gently untethered from the world that created it. From the constant hum of life support to the disorienting lack of down, every aspect of the space environment seems to quietly disrupt rest. The countermeasures are a testament to human ingenuity, but they are patches on a system that is profoundly different from our own. The quiet war for sleep in space reveals a deep and humbling truth. Rest is not a simple off switch. It is an intricate biological dance, choreographed by the gravity and rhythm of our home planet. Without those anchors, our bodies are lost. A truly deep, restorative sleep may be one of the most precious luxuries that only Earth can provide. It's a quiet reminder that no matter how far we travel, a fundamental part of us will always be tied to the gentle, relentless pull of home. If you want to explore more about the incredible challenges and triumphs of human spaceflight, you can find our playlist on the Artemis missions right here. And as always, thank you for watching. The invisible force that engineers your sleep. We have all experienced it. Lying awake in a room engineered for perfect rest, dark, quiet, with the finest pillows and mattress, and yet, sleep remains distant. The mind continues to work, and a strange energy persists in the body, a state that defies all our careful preparations. We follow the accepted wisdom. We avoid screens, we try calming teas, we even attempt meditation. Still, the shores of sleep seem to recede with each passing moment. The problem, it turns out, may not be with our mattress, our habits, or even our restless thoughts. The most powerful mechanism for sleep is not something we can purchase or a new behavior to adopt. It is an invisible, fundamental force of the universe, one that has surrounded us for our entire existence. This is the story of how a basic law of physics conspires with our own physiology every night. This is the story of gravity, and how it secretly engineers our sleep. The heat problem. We are all familiar with the feeling of being too hot to sleep. We twist and turn, moving limbs from under the covers, flipping a pillow in search of its cool side. This experience is more than simple discomfort. It is a direct signal from our body that a critical pre-sleep process is failing. To understand this, we must distinguish between two temperatures. There is our shell temperature, that of our skin, which we can feel. But deep inside, protected by layers of tissue and bone, is our core body temperature, the temperature of our vital organs, including the brain. The brain can be thought of as a biological supercomputer. Its daily work of processing information, managing movement, and regulating emotions generates a tremendous amount of heat. Much like any high-performance processor, the brain requires a cooling system to function sustainably. In many ways, sleep is that biological cooling cycle. For sleep to be initiated, our core body temperature must drop. This is not a suggestion, it is a biological prerequisite. Research shows that in the hours before sleep, a healthy body's core temperature falls by approximately 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. This decline is the primary trigger that signals the brain to power down. The steepest part of this temperature drop corresponds precisely with the strongest urge to sleep. Sleep rarely, if ever, begins while the core temperature is on an upward trend. That feeling of being hot and restless, then, is a sign that the body's internal cooling mechanism has stalled. We are, quite literally, too hot to sleep because the brain's off switch is temperature controlled. While keeping a room cool is a component of the solution, the cooling must be an inside job, an orchestrated process. The story of that process begins not with temperature but with time itself. The circadian gatekeeper. Every living organism on Earth, from microscopic bacteria to the largest whales, operates according to an internal rhythm. Flowers open with the morning sun and close at dusk. Nocturnal animals hunt by night and rest by day. We, too, are governed by this same ancient clockwork. This is the circadian rhythm, a cycle of roughly 24 hours that directs nearly every part of our physiology. Often, we associate our circadian rhythm only with the sleep-wake cycle, driven by light. But this is just one of its functions. Deep within the brain's hypothalamus is a small cluster of nerve cells known as the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The SCN acts as the master conductor for hundreds of biological processes, taking its primary cue from sunlight entering the retina to synchronize the body's internal orchestra. One of the most critical rhythms the SCN conducts is the body's 24-hour temperature cycle. Independent of our activity level, our core body temperature rises and falls in a predictable wave. It is typically at its lowest point in the early morning, around 2 to 4 a.m., then begins to rise, preparing us for the day. It continues to climb, peaking in the late afternoon or early evening. Then, a remarkable transition begins. Approximately 2 hours before our natural bedtime, the SCN sends out a signal to initiate the cool down. The core body temperature starts a gradual, deliberate descent. This downward slope opens a biological gate. As the core temperature falls, it triggers other sleep-inducing processes, most notably the release of the hormone melatonin. The relationship is so intertwined that scientists have a term for the onset of nightly melatonin release: dim light melatonin onset, DLMO, and it is inextricably linked to this initial drop in core temperature. One can picture the brain as a fortress, and sleep as a state that can only be entered through a single, massive gate. All day, as our core temperature is high and rising, that gate is barred. As evening approaches and the SCN signals for the cool down, the heavy gate slowly begins to swing open. The moment of maximum sleepiness corresponds to when that gate is at its widest, the steepest point of the temperature decline. This explains the disorientation of jet lag. It is not just tiredness, the entire internal timing system is out of sync. The body's temperature rhythm might be trying to raise the temperature to promote wakefulness at 3 a.m. local time, because the internal clock believes it is still morning at home. The sleep gate is closed when it should be open. It also clarifies why some forms of insomnia are linked to dysregulated temperature rhythms. Studies have shown that many who struggle to fall asleep maintain an elevated core body temperature into the night. Their gate is stuck. They are waiting for a sleepiness that cannot arrive because the fundamental biological trigger, the cool down, has been delayed or blunted. Understanding this circadian gatekeeper is the first step. We now know that sleep requires the core to cool. But the body does not just become colder. It must actively move heat. This requires a system that is both simple and elegant, and it is here we find the true, invisible engine of our sleep. The revelation, the gravity engine. For decades, the advice has been to make the bedroom cool. This frames the problem as if we get cool by being in a cold place, like an object in a refrigerator. But the human body does not work this way. The cooling that triggers sleep is an active, internally driven process. The cool down must come from the inside out. The secret to cooling the core is related to the temperature of our skin, specifically on the hands and feet. To understand this, we must look at our circulatory system. Blood is not just a carrier of oxygen, it is our body's liquid heating and cooling system. It transports heat from the core and brain and can move it to other areas to be released. The body controls this through two opposing processes: vasoconstriction and vasodilation. When we are cold, the blood vessels near the skin's surface constrict to reduce blood flow and conserve heat in the core. This is vasoconstriction. Conversely, when the body needs to release heat, the blood vessels dilate. This is vasodilation. It floods the skin with warm blood from the core, allowing heat to radiate away into the environment. Our hands, face, and feet are exceptionally good at this. They have a high surface area to volume ratio and a unique network of blood vessels, making them perfect thermal windows. To cool the core, the body strategically shunts hot blood to these extremities. As our hands and feet warm up, our core cools down. This is the central paradox of falling asleep. To cool the inside, we must first warm the outside. The temperature of the hands and feet is one of the best predictors of how quickly sleep will begin. The question then becomes, what assists the body in this process? What helps it send warm blood from the chest to the toes? This is where the invisible force comes in. Gravity. Throughout the day, as we stand and walk, gravity pulls on our bodily fluids, causing blood to pool in the lower extremities. Our cardiovascular system works constantly against this downward pull to pump blood uphill to the brain. This upright, gravity-resisting posture defines our daytime physiological state. The moment we lie down, the rules change. When we transition from a vertical to a horizontal position, gravity's effect on the body becomes uniform. There is no longer an uphill or downhill. The heart no longer has to fight to push blood against a column of pressure. The pooling of blood in the legs subsides as fluid redistributes throughout the vasculature. We are, in effect, creating a personal microgravity environment. This simple change in posture is a profound signal to the body. It is the physical embodiment of rest, and it provides a massive assist to the pre-sleep cooling process. With gravity equalized, it becomes significantly easier for the heart to pump warm, core blood to the peripheral radiators, our hands and feet. Let us assemble the process. A few hours before bed, the SCN signals the cool down. We lie down. This postural shift neutralizes the uneven pull of gravity. This gravity assist allows the cardiovascular system to easily open the floodgates, vasodilation, to the hands and feet. Warm blood rushes from the core to the extremities. As our hands and feet radiate heat away, our core body temperature begins to drop. The sleep gate opens, melatonin enters the system, and we drift into non-REM sleep. It is a silent, elegant cascade. Gravity isn't actively pulling us to sleep. Rather, the change in our orientation to gravity enables the entire process. Lying down is the key that unlocks the body's innate ability to cool itself. But what happens if this force is removed entirely? To find the answer, we must leave the Earth. The space angle, proof by absence. Imagine floating in a void, with no up or down. For the astronauts who have lived on the International Space Station, this reality presents a persistent problem: the profound disruption of sleep. Astronauts are allotted 8.5 hours for sleep, but many report getting only about 6 hours of poor quality rest. For years, this was attributed to excitement, noise, or the 16 sunrises and sunsets they see each day. But a growing body of evidence points to a more fundamental culprit: the absence of gravity. On Earth, scientists simulate this using head-down tilt bed rest. Volunteers lie in a bed tilted downwards by 6 degrees for weeks, mimicking the fluid shifts that occur in microgravity, where fluids drift from the legs toward the head. These studies reveal how critical gravity is. In simulated microgravity, the daily wave of core body temperature flattens. The nighttime troughs are higher. The steep drop in temperature that opens the gate to sleep becomes a shallow slope. The signal is muted. This happens because the body's circulatory map is redrawn. Without gravity pulling blood down during the day, the contrast between the upright, active state and the horizontal, resting state is lost. The fluid shift toward the head creates a state of circulatory confusion. The system for shunting blood to the extremities to cool the core is thrown into chaos. The hands and feet can no longer serve as efficient radiators. Living in microgravity induces a state that mimics some of the worst conditions for sleep on Earth. A hot, stuffy room also makes it harder for the hands and feet to radiate heat, flattening the nighttime temperature drop. In space, astronauts experience a chronic, externally imposed version of this problem. Their biology is sound, but the physical environment their bodies evolved in has been removed. Studies on primates flown in space have confirmed this. Their temperature rhythms became desynchronized from their sleep-wake cycles. The elegant dance between temperature and sleep was broken. What astronauts experience is the ultimate proof by absence. It reveals that the act of lying down is not just about comfort. It is a vital, gravity-dependent biological reset. It is the moment the body leverages a fundamental force of the universe to reconfigure its internal plumbing for the critical cool-down necessary for deep sleep. The challenges of sleep in space serve as a powerful reminder of the invisible forces that govern our lives on Earth. Our biology is a direct product of evolution in a gravitational field. The fact that lying down feels inherently restful is not a coincidence. The how-to working with the system. Understanding this science allows us to make targeted interventions that support our body's natural engineering, ensuring the sleep gate opens wide each night. 1. The paradoxical warm bath. We've established that the core must cool down. A warm bath or shower before bed seems counterintuitive. But we now understand the mechanism. The goal is to cool the core by warming the skin. A warm bath is a highly efficient way to do this. When we immerse ourselves in warm water, the body responds with massive vasodilation. A large volume of blood comes to the surface. After stepping out, water evaporates from the skin, creating a cooling effect. At the same time, the dilated blood vessels radiate heat at an accelerated rate. The result is a rapid drop in core body temperature. By strategically heating the body's shell, we have prompted the core to cool down faster. The ideal timing is to finish the bath or shower 60 to 90 minutes before sleep. This allows the body to experience that pronounced temperature drop right as we get into bed. 2. The socks to bed question. Science offers a clear verdict on wearing socks to bed. The goal is to open the thermal windows of the feet to release core body heat. If the feet are cold, the body initiates vasoconstriction to conserve heat. The radiators are shut. This traps heat in the core. Wearing a light pair of socks provides enough insulation to gently warm the feet. This warmth encourages vasodilation, opening those critical blood vessels. The feet then efficiently release heat, helping the core temperature to fall. For those with cold feet, wearing socks is a direct way to help the body initiate sleep. 3. Lie down to wind down. Many of us have an upright, wind-down routine, sitting on a couch or at a desk until the moment we decide to sleep. The transition from vertical to horizontal is a crucial part of the process. It is the gravity assist. It is beneficial to build this into our evening routine. Instead of sitting, try lying down to read or listen to a podcast for the last 30 to 60 minutes of the evening. This gives the body a head start, allowing gravity's effects to equalize and blood to redistribute before we are even trying to sleep. The invisible engineer can begin its work, so that when our head hits the pillow, the cooling process is already underway. 4. Cooling the room intelligently. Finally, let us revisit the classic advice. Keep the room cool, between 15 to 19 degrees Celsius, 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we understand why. A cool room does not cool the core directly. It creates a favorable temperature gradient between our skin and the environment. When the body sends warm blood to the hands and feet, those radiators need somewhere to send the heat. If the room is warm, the heat has nowhere to go and the process stalls. A cool room acts as a heat sink. It readily absorbs the heat our hands and feet are releasing, making the entire process more efficient. Conclusion: for our entire lives, we have been held by an invisible force. We rarely consider how gravity reaches deep inside our biology, shaping the very rhythm of our rest. We have journeyed from the problem of a sleepless night to the intricate clockwork of the brain. We have discovered that the secret to cooling our bodies lies not in making ourselves cold, but in strategically warming our skin, and that our hands and feet are sophisticated biological radiators. We saw how the simple act of lying down works with gravity, not against it, to unlock this entire process. We even traveled to space, where the struggles of astronauts provide the ultimate proof of this system's importance. Sleep is not a battle to be won. It is a process to be enabled. It is about creating the right conditions for our bodies to do what they are designed to do. It is about surrendering to the gentle, persistent, and powerful force that has engineered our sleep since the dawn of life on this planet. Why you start sleeping like an astronaut after 50? What if I told you that after 50, your body starts training for a secret mission to space, right in your own bed? It sounds a little out there, but the way your body begins to deal with gravity starts to look a lot like an astronaut's. And it's the key to understanding why your sleep gets lighter and more easily broken as you get older. We're going to uncover the science behind why you start sleeping like an astronaut, and what you can do to get back the deep, restorative rest you need. Stay with me, because the answers are written in our biology. The mission. Welcome to your body's space program. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle shift. The nights where sleep, once a deep, predictable ocean, now feels like a shallow, choppy bay. You wake up at 3 in the morning for no good reason, your mind instantly racing, your body refusing to sink back into slumber. Or maybe you get tired earlier, only to be wide awake before the sun has any thought of rising. You tell yourself it's just part of getting older. But what if it's more profound than that? What if your body has been quietly enrolled in its own private space program? This isn't just a metaphor to make a frustrating experience sound better. It's an analogy grounded in some startling scientific parallels. For decades, space agencies have meticulously studied what happens to the human body without gravity. They've done tons of research, not just on astronauts in orbit, but also in tough ground-based experiments called bed rest studies. In these studies, volunteers lie in a head-down tilt position for weeks, a method that amazingly mimics the effects of microgravity. And what they've found is that without the constant pull of Earth's gravity, the human body changes in very specific ways. Muscles weaken, bones lose density, fluids shift upward toward the head, and, crucially, sleep falls apart. It becomes shorter, more fragmented, and way less refreshing. Now, here's the wild part. A lot of these changes seen in astronauts are uncannily similar to the natural process of aging. The muscle wasting condition called sarcopenia, which hits a huge percentage of older adults, looks remarkably like the muscle loss seen in astronauts. The way our sleep patterns break up, the drop in deep sleep, and the shifting of our internal clocks all mirror the experiences of those who have temporarily escaped Earth's pull. So, when you wake up in the dead of night, feeling strangely alert and untethered from sleep, you are, in a very real way, getting a taste of what it's like to float in space. Your body is going through a fundamental change in its relationship with gravity. It's not just that you're getting older, it's that the lifelong conversation between your cells and this fundamental force is being rewritten. Think of gravity as the steady, powerful beat that has kept your biological orchestra in rhythm for the first half of your life. It tells your muscles how strong they need to be and helps your heart pump blood up from your legs. It's a grounding force that your brain uses to regulate countless processes, including when you sleep and when you wake up. But as we age, it's as if our body's ability to hear that beat begins to fade. Our systems become less responsive to gravity's cues. This isn't a failure, it's a biological drift. Your body, acting as if it's getting a weaker signal from gravity, starts to behave like it's in space. It begins to decondition. Just like an astronaut, this is your new mission: to learn how to navigate this new, low-gravity internal world. And understanding why this is happening is the first step toward reclaiming your vitality. Mission control is down, the science of your changing brain. Every mission needs a mission control. For sleep, that command center is a tiny cluster of about 20,000 nerve cells in your brain's hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. Think of the SCN as the master clock for your entire body, dictating your 24-hour circadian rhythms. It tells you when to feel alert and when to get sleepy, and it regulates your hormones and body temperature on a repeating schedule. For most of your life, this mission control has been rock solid. Its main cue comes from the most powerful signal in our environment, light. When light hits your eyes, it sends a direct message to the SCN. It's daytime. Be alert. Shut down sleep. As darkness falls, the SCN sends a different command. It tells the pineal gland to start producing melatonin, the hormone of darkness. Melatonin doesn't knock you out, but it's a gentle nudge, telling your body it's time to prepare for rest. It's an amazing system, perfectly tuned to our planet's rotation. But after we pass the 50-year mark, mission control starts having some technical difficulties. The SCN itself begins to weaken with age. The powerful, clear signals it once sent out become fainter, like a staticky radio broadcast. One of the biggest consequences is a change in melatonin production. As we get older, our bodies naturally produce less of it. This means the "go to sleep" signal that used to be a loud announcement is now more of a whisper. With a weaker melatonin push, it's easier to be woken up. Small disturbances you once would have slept right through, a distant noise, a creak in the floor, are now more likely to pull you out of sleep. This is a key reason so many older adults say they are light sleepers. This weakening clock also explains why your sleep schedule tends to creep earlier, a phenomenon known as a phase advance. You start feeling tired at 8 or 9 p.m. instead of 10 or 11, and in turn, you wake up at 4 or 5 a.m., feeling like you've had a full night's rest. Studies confirm this is a real, measurable trend as we get older. Now, let's bring our astronauts back in. What happens to their circadian rhythms in space? The exact same thing. On the International Space Station, they orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, seeing 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. This completely disconnects them from a natural light-dark cycle. Without that reliable 24-hour day, their SCN struggles. Their melatonin cycles get disrupted. The result? Though they are scheduled for 8.5 hours of sleep, astronauts on the ISS average only about 6 hours. Their sleep is broken, and they report being sleepier during the day. See the parallel? Aging, in a way, creates a similar decoupling right here on Earth. Even though the sun still rises and sets, your brain's ability to process that signal is weaker. Less time spent outdoors, which is common for many older adults, further deprives the SCN of the strong light it needs to stay anchored. Just like an astronaut whose body clock is confused, your aging brain's clock is getting a weaker signal, causing its rhythm to flatten out. This isn't just about feeling tired. This breakdown has a ripple effect. Your sleep drive, the system that builds up sleep pressure the longer you're awake, also seems to decline with age. So at the end of the day, you have less of that deep, compelling need for sleep. Combine that with a weaker signal from mission control, and you have the perfect storm for fragmented, unsatisfying rest. You're less driven to fall asleep, and you have a weaker clock telling you to stay asleep. It's a systems failure at mission control. 0G body. How gravity loss weakens you on Earth. If the brain is mission control, the body is the ship. And our bodies are designed to thrive under Earth's gravity. For our whole lives, this force has been an invisible personal trainer, making our muscles and bones work to stay strong. But when the body starts responding to that pull less efficiently, it begins to act like it's in space. The most dramatic parallel is a process called sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength. It's a gradual process that picks up speed after 50. This isn't just about being weaker, it's a systemic change that's strongly linked with poor sleep. It creates a vicious cycle. Muscle loss hurts sleep, and poor sleep makes muscle loss worse. Now, think about an astronaut. In microgravity, their muscles are suddenly unloaded. There's no need to fight gravity. The body, always efficient, basically says, if you're not using this muscle, we're not maintaining it. The result is rapid muscle atrophy. In fact, microgravity is considered an accelerated model of aging. The changes an astronaut sees in weeks are strikingly similar to the changes of sarcopenia over decades. The scientific link is clear. NASA's bed rest studies consistently show that simulating microgravity leads to muscle loss, bone demineralization, and inflammation, all hallmarks of aging. Researchers from Stanford even sent engineered human muscle tissue to the International Space Station and found that just 1 week in microgravity caused changes remarkably similar to those in older adults with sarcopenia. The conclusion was stark. Microgravity acts like an accelerated disease-forming platform. As you age, your body doesn't enter 0G, but its response changes. It becomes less efficient at building muscle. The same walk that maintained your muscle at 30 is less effective at 60. Your body begins a slow process of unloading, just like an astronaut. So how does this 0G body mess with your sleep? The connection is in your circulatory system. A hidden job of your large leg muscles is to act as a second heart. When you walk, contracting these muscles helps pump blood back up to your chest, against gravity. As sarcopenia weakens these muscles, the pump becomes less efficient. Here again, the astronaut analogy is perfect. In space, without gravity, fluids shift to the head and chest, causing the classic puffy face, bird legs look. This fluid shift alters pressure and can disturb sleep. On Earth, an aging body faces a related problem. The weaker muscle pump means the circulatory system has to work harder. This compromised circulation can directly fragment your sleep. Poor circulation can lead to a state of mild, chronic oxygen reduction in tissues, which the body reads as a stress signal, causing you to wake up more. Think about that restless legs feeling or the need to constantly shift at night. It can be your body's subconscious attempt to fire up those muscle pumps to get the blood moving. This is all tied up with inflammation. Both muscle unloading in space and sarcopenia on Earth are linked to higher levels of systemic inflammation, which is another major sleep disruptor. So when you lie down at night, your body is no longer the same gravity-fighting machine. Its muscles are subtly deconditioned and its circulation is less robust. It is, in essence, a body that has started to adapt to a lower gravity world. You are an astronaut in your own bed, and your ship is sending distress signals, in the form of broken sleep. The fragile sleep of an astronaut, why your sleep is lighter. So, your brain's mission control is getting fuzzy and your body is in a 0G state. How does this make your sleep feel so light and fragile? The answer is in your sleep architecture, the nightly pattern of cycling through different sleep stages. A good night's sleep is a journey. It cycles roughly every 90 minutes through light sleep, N1 and N2, deep sleep, N3, and REM sleep. N3 deep sleep is the holy grail. It's when your body does most of its physical repairs and flushes toxins from the brain. REM sleep is for dreaming and emotional processing. Younger people spend a big chunk of their night, especially early on, in that restorative N3 deep sleep. But as we age, that architecture changes dramatically. Older adults spend much more time in the lighter stages of N1 and N2 sleep, and way less time in deep N3 and REM sleep. The amount of deep sleep can plummet from 20% of the night to 10% or even less. This is the very definition of lighter sleep. You spend more of your night hovering just below the surface of consciousness, where it's much easier to be woken up. Think of deep sleep as being in a submarine, protected from surface waves. Light sleep is like being in a small dinghy, tossed by every ripple. Now, why would a body that's acting like it's in a low-gravity state choose to spend more time in light sleep? You can think of it as a misplaced protective mechanism. The space environment is risky. It makes sense for an astronaut's brain to stay more vigilant and easier to arouse. Deep sleep is a state of total vulnerability. Light sleep is a compromise, offering some rest while keeping the brain closer to an alarm state. Your aging body, through a different route, comes to a similar conclusion. The weaker signals from mission control, the day-conditioned muscles, the rise in inflammation, these are all internal stress signals. Your brain interprets this instability as a kind of threat. The result is that your brain defaults to the safer option: lighter, more easily interrupted sleep. That sudden jolt awake at 3 a.m. is your brain's hair-trigger response, a result of spending too much time in that flimsy dinghy instead of the protected submarine of deep sleep. This is made worse by the fact that older adults simply wake up more often during the night, averaging 3 or 4 times. It could be a full bladder or chronic pain, but the key difference is what happens after you wake up. A younger person with a strong sleep drive will likely roll over and fall right back to sleep. An older person with a weaker sleep drive and a wonky clock finds it much harder. That 3 a.m. wake-up can easily turn into an hour of staring at the ceiling. This is your reality after 50. The cumulative effects of life have created a state where your body acts like it's perpetually on high alert. The deep, restorative sleep it desperately needs is harder to get because the very systems that produce it are now programmed for vigilance. You're not just sleeping poorly, you're sleeping like someone who can't afford to let their guard down. You are sleeping like an astronaut. Mission Debrief. Your guide to thriving in low gravity. Okay, so you're an astronaut in your own bed. It might sound like a doomed mission, but it's not. This is where the analogy becomes empowering. Because what do astronauts do? They train. They use specific strategies or countermeasures to thrive in a tough environment. And you can do the same. This isn't about reversing aging. It's about giving your body the right signals to counteract this weightless drift and anchor your sleep back to Earth. Here is your mission debrief. These are your countermeasures. Countermeasure 1. Fight back against weightlessness. The single most powerful way to fight that feeling of weightlessness is to actively engage with gravity. Sarcopenia happens because of muscle unloading, so the solution is reloading. This means movement, especially weight-bearing exercise. Astronauts spend about 2 hours a day on treadmills and resistance machines for this very reason. For you, it can be regular walking, dancing, or simple bodyweight squats. This does 2 crucial things. First, it directly fights sarcopenia, strengthening your muscles and improving that all-important circulatory pump. Second, it builds a stronger sleep drive. By physically tiring your body out, you arrive at bedtime with a much greater need for deep sleep. Countermeasure 2. Recalibrate your master clock. Your mission control, the SCN, is drifting. It needs a strong, clear signal to sync back to a 24-hour day. The most powerful signal you have is bright light. Make it a non-negotiable rule to get 15 to 30 minutes of direct morning sunlight. Go outside. Outdoor light is many times more powerful than indoor light, even on a cloudy day. This morning light sends a powerful, wake up and sync up, signal to your SCN, helping to fight that tendency to get sleepy too early. Conversely, control your light at night. In the 2 hours before bed, dim the lights. Avoid the blue light from screens, as it's especially good at shutting down melatonin production. You're telling your brain, the day is over. Stand down. This creates a strong contrast that gives your aging SCN the clearest possible cues. Countermeasure 3. Stick to a strict mission schedule. Astronauts live by a rigid schedule, and you should too. With a weakened circadian rhythm, your body thrives on routine. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every single day asterisk, yep, even on weekends, is one of the most powerful things you can do. This consistency reinforces the rhythm your SCN is trying to keep. It helps your body anticipate sleep, so when your bedtime arrives, it's already started the process. Avoid long or late afternoon naps, as they can kill the sleep pressure you need for the night. If you have to nap, keep it to 20 to 30 minutes and do it earlier in the day. Countermeasure 4. Optimize your life support systems. Your bedroom is your sleeping pod. It needs to be cool, dark, and quiet. A cooler body temperature is essential for deep sleep, so a cool room helps that along. Darkness is crucial for melatonin, so use blackout curtains or an eye mask. And silence is key to preventing wake-ups during light sleep, so try earplugs or a white noise machine if you need them. Your diet is also part of your life support. Avoid heavy meals, caffeine, and alcohol close to bedtime. While alcohol might make you feel drowsy at first, it's a major cause of sleep fragmentation, suppressing REM sleep and causing you to wake up in the second half of the night. By using these countermeasures, you are actively taking part in your mission. You're sending strong signals to your body that it is still on Earth, subject to gravity, and synced to the sun. You're reinforcing the very systems weakened by time, and you can turn that light, fragile, astronaut-like sleep into something deeper and more restorative. If this journey into the science of your sleep hit home, or if you've ever had that strange, weightless feeling at 3 a.m., please give this video a like. It lets me know you found this helpful. I'd love to hear your own experiences and what countermeasures have worked for you, so please share your story in the comments below. It's a community of fellow astronauts down there. And if you want to keep exploring the incredible science of our bodies, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next mission. Conclusion: getting older doesn't have to mean giving up on good sleep. The frustration you feel is real, but it's not a personal failure. It's a profound biological shift your body undertakes as its relationship with gravity and time changes. Understanding that you are, in a sense, sleeping like an astronaut provides a new way to think about it. It changes you from a passive victim of aging into an active pilot of your own biology. By re-engaging with gravity, recalibrating your internal clock, and sticking to a schedule, you're taking control of the flight deck. The journey of aging may take us into new territory, but with the right strategies, we can make sure we're rested and ready for whatever comes next. It's your mission. Now you have the manual. Sleep well, astronaut. Why your body can only dream on Earth. Have you ever woken from a dream so real that the world took a moment to settle back into place? A dream of flying, or falling, or walking through a world built from some quiet, inner place. We think of these as private events, happening only inside the mind. But what if they are not? What if the ability to dream is tied not just to the brain, but to the planet itself? It sounds strange, but evidence suggests that our ability to dream, to let the mind wander while the body is still, is a gift. A gift from the silent, constant force of Earth's gravity. This is a story about sleep, and its hidden connection to the world we live on. It begins not in a quiet room, but thousands of feet in the air, inside an aircraft made to defy gravity. And it starts with a puzzle that forces us to look again at what it means to rest. Imagine being on a plane that climbs at a steep angle. For a moment, you feel pressed into your seat with twice the force of normal gravity. This is called hypergravity. Then, the engines idle, and the plane falls in a controlled arc. For about 22 seconds, everything goes weightless. You float. The constant feeling of your own body's weight, a sensation so familiar you don't even notice it, is gone. Scientists have used these parabolic flights for decades to study how space affects the body. They decided to ask a simple question: how does this shift in gravity affect sleep? They had people take these flights and then tracked their sleep the following night with sensors that measure movement and rest. When the participants woke up, they were asked how they slept. The answer was consistent. They reported feeling more rested and waking up less. It seemed the flight had led to a night of better sleep. But the data from the sensors told a different story. It showed that their sleep was worse. It was more fragmented, with more awakenings and less time in deep, restorative states. They felt like they had slept well, but their bodies were restless. This is the thread we will follow. Why would our feeling of rest be so different from the reality? The answer lies in the force they were experimenting with, gravity. We have known that astronauts have trouble sleeping in space. We often blamed it on noise, stress, or unusual light cycles. But these experiments point to something deeper. They suggest gravity is not just what holds us to the ground. It is the invisible architect of our sleep. To understand this, we need to change how we see gravity. We think of it as a simple force. It holds oceans in place and makes an apple fall. But from birth, gravity is more. It is a constant, subtle pressure that has shaped every part of our biology. It is the invisible architect of the body. Think of your own body. As you sit or stand, muscles are working in a quiet, complex way. These are your anti-gravity muscles. They are in your legs, your back, your neck, holding you upright in a lifelong negotiation with that downward pull. This effort is so fundamental you don't perceive it. Your skeleton, the strong framework of your body, is a direct response to the need to bear weight in a gravitational field. Astronauts in space lose muscle and bone density for this reason. When the architect's plan is removed, the structure weakens. Every system in the body is tuned to this force. The heart pumps blood with a strength calculated to push it upward to the brain, against gravity. The fluid in the inner ear settles according to its pull, telling the brain which way is down. Even plants respond. A sprout sends its roots down and its stem up, sensing the gravitational field. Gravity is not just an external force. It is an internal one. It is woven into our biology. The energy you use each day, the very posture you hold, is part of a constant negotiation with this invisible partner. You are always, in a way, pushing back. And that is what makes sleep so remarkable. Because for a few hours every night, you stop pushing back. You lie down. You let go. But this is not a simple relaxation. It is a complex neurological event. A nightly act of vulnerability that lets the mind enter the world of dreams. And it is this act that reveals gravity's quiet, essential role. The surrender of sleep, it turns out, is only possible because we trust the architect. To understand why dreaming is an earthbound experience, we have to look at the most active phase of sleep, REM, or rapid eye movement. This is where the mind becomes most vivid. If we were to look at the brain's electrical activity during REM, it would look almost the same as when a person is awake and alert. The parts of the brain responsible for complex thought, emotion, and memory are highly active. They consolidate the day's experiences, filing them away and weaving them into strange narratives. In REM sleep, part of the brain is not just awake, it is living in an internally generated world. But while the mind is doing this, the body is doing something else. It is completely and intentionally paralyzed. This state is called REM atonia. Atonia means without tone. This is not just relaxation, it is an active shutdown of voluntary muscles. A signal from the brainstem travels down the spinal cord and inhibits the motor neurons that command the muscles. It is like a switch being flipped. The power to the limbs is cut. The only muscles spared are those that move the eyes and the diaphragm, which keeps you breathing. For a long time, scientists understood why this happens. It is a safety feature. It stops you from acting out your dreams. If you dream of running, the paralysis ensures you don't run into a wall. It is a biological stillness that allows for mental freedom. But we knew the why without asking the environmental how. What makes this state of total vulnerability safe to do every night? The answer, research suggests, is gravity. REM atonia is not a general muscle relaxation. It is a targeted relaxation of the anti-gravity muscles, the same ones in the torso, neck, and legs that spend all day fighting the downward pull of Earth. REM sleep is the moment the body declares a truce in its daily war with gravity. It is a complete surrender to that force. We can see this across the animal kingdom. For many terrestrial mammals, lying down is necessary for deep REM sleep. A horse can doze standing up, but to enter the dream state, it must make itself vulnerable and lie down. The same is true for elephants. These massive animals must cede their posture and collapse to the earth for true REM sleep. Why? Because REM atonia, the paralysis of the anti-gravity muscles, would make standing impossible. To dream, they must first surrender to the force they are built to resist. This connection becomes clearer when we look at body weight in sleep. In a review of dozens of mammal species, a clear pattern emerged. Heavier animals tend to sleep less. An elephant might sleep only 2 to 4 hours a day, while a small bat might sleep for 20. While metabolism and diet are major factors, one physical explanation is gravity. For a heavier animal, the energy required to simply stand and move is immense. Waking life is a more strenuous battle. Now, compare this with aquatic mammals. Dolphins and whales live in an environment of neutral buoyancy. The water's upward push cancels out gravity's pull. They do not have to fight to support their weight. And what do we find? They do not experience REM sleep as we know it. Instead, they have developed unihemispheric sleep, where one half of the brain sleeps at a time. They never experience that total, bilateral surrender. In an environment where gravity is not the primary force, the architecture of sleep evolved down a different path. This all points to one quiet conclusion. The nightly paralysis you experience is a trust fall. And the thing you are trusting to catch you, to hold you while your mind travels, is the earth itself. Gravity is the invisible safety net that makes the vulnerability of REM sleep possible. But this raises a question. What happens if you take that net away? For most of human history, that question was philosophical. But in the last century, we have sent people to a place where the net disappears: space. The experiences of astronauts have given us a picture of what happens to sleep when the architect's plan is removed. Astronauts consistently report that sleeping in space is difficult. On Earth, there is the pressure of a body on a mattress, a feeling of being held. In microgravity, that feeling is gone. Astronauts strap themselves into sleeping bags on a wall to keep from floating. But the fundamental reference of down is absent. Data from astronauts and ground-based simulations, like long-term bed rest studies, show clear disruption. Sleep duration in space is often shorter than on the ground. The body's internal clock, the circadian rhythm, begins to drift. On Earth, this rhythm is anchored by light and dark, but also by the physical cycle of standing against gravity and surrendering to it. Without that postural anchor, the body's rhythms flatten. The result is a sleep that is shallow and fragmented. It is less efficient and less restorative. This leads to fatigue and slower reaction times, dangerous side effects when operating complex equipment in orbit. NASA lists sleep disruption as a major risk for long-duration spaceflight. Now, let's return to the trust fall of REM sleep. On Earth, atonia is a simple, low-energy solution because we can rely on gravity to hold a paralyzed body in place. In space, that solution becomes a problem. In a zero-G environment, a paralyzed body is not resting. It is adrift. Small, involuntary twitches before atonia fully sets in could be enough to push an astronaut away from a surface. They could drift across the cabin. The safety mechanism that evolved on our planet becomes awkward in an alien environment. There is another, deeper aspect to this. During REM sleep on Earth, the eyes move rapidly. One way to think about this is in relation to gravity. In the dream state, the brain has a reduced sensation of the body's position. It's as if the eyes are instinctively searching for the vertical and horizontal reference points that gravity normally provides. This idea is supported by data from astronauts. During their first nights in space, when weightlessness is most disorienting, the frequency of their rapid eye movements is significantly higher than on the ground. It is as if their brains, deprived of their most basic orienting signal, are frantically scanning for a landmark that no longer exists. What this tells us is that our sleep is not a self-contained process. It is a duet between our biology and planetary physics. The deep, imaginative sleep we have on Earth is a performance that requires a specific stage. Take away the stage and the performance changes. Sleep becomes shorter, lighter, and more chaotic. The dream state itself may become a search for a home that isn't there. It shows us that while our minds might dream of floating through the cosmos, our bodies can only truly dream when held by the earth. We began with a paradox, the feeling of good sleep after a parabolic flight, even when data showed the opposite. We now have a way to understand it. The feeling of good sleep is tied to our perception of our environment. But the body does not perceive, it records. The sensors told the truth. When you disrupt the body's ancient relationship with gravity, you disrupt its ability to rest. We have traveled from a plane to space to the deep past of animal evolution. All paths lead back to the same quiet revelation. Dreaming, as we experience it, is an earthly phenomenon. It is a performance co-authored by the brain and the planet. Gravity is the silent partner. It provides the down that gives dreams an up. It is the anchor that allows the mind to drift, secure in the knowledge that it will not float away. This changes our understanding of what it means to be a creature of this planet. We are not just living on Earth, we are living with it. Our biology is a reflection of this world. The architecture of our nervous system has been shaped over millions of years by this inescapable fact of our environment. The dialogue between our ancestors and gravity is written into the code of how we sleep. Think about the implications. If we travel to Mars, where gravity is about 1/3 of Earth's, how will sleep adapt? Will dreaming be different? These are now practical questions for the future. Our bodies are adapted to a specific set of planetary conditions. Our dreams are part of that adaptation. This transforms the simple act of going to bed. The feeling of weariness at the end of the day is, in part, the fatigue from holding yourself upright. The satisfying feeling of sinking into a mattress is the feeling of your anti-gravity muscles finally standing down. And the journey into a vivid dream is a privilege given to you by the mass of the planet beneath, holding you in its gentle, unyielding embrace. The body trusts the earth. It is a trust so deep, so implicit, you have never had to think about it. The ability to explore the worlds in your own mind depends on the grounding force of this one. Tonight, when you lie down to sleep, take a moment to notice it. The feeling of your own weight, the pressure of the mattress on your back. That sensation is an active relationship. It is the feeling of the earth holding you. It is the handshake that allows your body to perform its nightly act of trust. We began with the idea that every night, you surrender, allowing your body to become paralyzed so your mind can be free. We discovered this trust fall is made possible by an invisible safety net, gravity. In its absence, sleep becomes fragmented and disoriented. The very mechanism that keeps us safe on Earth becomes a liability in the void. So, the next time you wake from a dream, remember it was not just your brain's creation. It was a story told by your mind, but made safe by your planet. Your ability to dream is a quiet testament to the way our lives are woven into our environment. You do not just sleep on Earth, you sleep with it. And so, as you close your eyes, feeling the gentle reassurance of your own weight, remember that you are not just falling asleep. You are falling into an ancient agreement with the world itself. An agreement that allows your mind to fly, because your body is so profoundly and safely grounded. If this calm exploration into the world helps you unwind, consider subscribing to the channel. We believe that understanding the why behind our experiences gives us a deeper appreciation for being alive. And we would love to continue this conversation with you. Tell us in the comments, What is the most vivid dream you have ever had? And does it feel different now, knowing that it was co-authored by the planet you call home?